Chapter 142. Qin Xuan and Lu Zi stood on the side of the street, watching LV Xianyang leave. Only when LV Xianyang's figure could no longer be seen did Qin Xuan breathe a sigh of relief. My good grandfather is said to be gentle, easygoing, and approachable. Why did he become so fierce when he came to me? Qin Xuan smiled bitterly, glanced at Lu Zi, who was standing beside him, and explained, I thought your grandfather was a member of the Lan family, so I was a little disrespectful. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter. Lu Zi shook her head, looked at Qin Xuan with a subtle look, and said, I'm more curious about your relationship with Yu Kai. I've known you for so long, but this is the first time I've heard you mention this girl. Originally, Lu Zi thought that Qin Xuan had a good relationship with only Zhou Lin beside her. She didn't expect that Yu Kai would suddenly jump out, and she was actually his fiancée. I've already explained it. Qin Xuan sighed helplessly and said, I'm just a poor boy. When I was facing the threat of several big families in Xiang City, if it wasn't for the protection of the Yu family, I would have been dead long ago. My relationship with Yu Kai is really just that of a friend. Qin Xuan knew that Yu Kai had some special feelings for him, but he always thought that it was just the dependence and trust that she had developed for him in the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range. It was a very simple feeling. As the two of them didn't have any contact for a long time, this dependence and trust would naturally gradually fade. At that time, the dissolution of the engagement would become a matter of course. Moreover, Qin Xuan really didn't have any improper thoughts about Yu Kai. His mind was now all on cultivation, and he had no intention of having any romantic feelings. I accept this explanation. Lu Zi looked deeply at Qin Xuan. She wanted to ask Qin Xuan how he would deal with her grandfather if there was no matter with Yu Kai, but she didn't say it in the end. Come on, where are we going now? Of course we have to go to the mission hall of the teaching building. We are now in the 8th level of the refinement stage, so we should accept some commission tasks to hone our strength. The two of them acted as if nothing had happened, chatting and laughing as they walked toward the mission hall of the teaching building. No matter if it was a new student or a senior student, they had to have at least the strength of refining Qi stage level 8 to be qualified to enter the mission hall. When Qin Xuan and Lu Zi arrived at the mission hall, they were surprised to see a sea of people in the mission hall. You should all be seniors. Qin Xuan looked at the people in the hall and said to Lu Zi, there are quite a few official students and quite a few auditing students. In order to distinguish the official students from the auditing students, the uniforms of the two were different. Let's go take a look at the quest panel. Lu Zi identified the location of the quest panel and prepared to go take a look with Qin Xuan. Just as the two of them prepared to go to the quest panel, a skinny figure suddenly flashed from the side and blocked their path. If I'm not mistaken, the two of you should be the outstanding students among the new students, Qin Xuan and Lu Zi, right? The skinny male student looked at the two of them with a friendly smile and said, truly an enviable immortal couple. Looking at the person blocking their path, Qin Xuan faintly smiled and asked, Senior, do you need something? Now that you've already cultivated to the 8th level of the refinement stage, you must have come to the mission hall to accept commission tasks. I just happen to have a large-scale task that requires many people to cooperate. Are you interested in joining us? The skinny male student chuckled and said to Qin Xuan, we're all students of the same school, and I'm still your senior. Taking care of you is a matter of course. Qin Xuan and Lu Zi weren't fools. They naturally understood that there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The senior in front of them was so cordial towards them, so he must have some ulterior motive. How about it? Could it be that the two of you don't want to consider it? You must know that there aren't many opportunities to participate in large-scale tasks. If you miss this opportunity, who knows when the next one will come? Seeing that Qin Xuan and Lu Zi were indifferent, the skinny male student seemed to be somewhat anxious. Come on, Wang Xian, you've already lost. Suddenly, a shout came from the surroundings. A tall male student walked over with a chuckle and stood beside Wang Xian. According to the agreement, you've lost, so these two newcomers will be members of our Black Wolf gang. Consider yourself lucky. Wang Xian looked at the person who came and said with some displeasure, "But let me tell you, these two newcomers aren't that easy to trick. Our Black Wolf gang has always accepted people willingly, unlike your Red Pagoda gang that still needs to cheat." The tall male student squeezed Qin Chuan for a while, then looked at Qin Chuan and Lu Zi and said with a smile, "Hello, juniors. I'm the Black Wolf gang's deacon, Qi Lu. You can just call me by my name. Senior Qi, what do you mean by the Black Wolf gang and the Red Pagoda gang?" Qin Chuan didn't directly call Qi Lu by his name. Instead, he showed the respect of a freshman to a senior. He didn't want to be caught by others and made things difficult for him. "You're freshmen, so it's normal that you don't know about this. Let's go sit over there and I'll have a good chat with you. Even if you're not willing to join our Black Wolf gang in the end, it doesn't matter." Qi Lu appeared to be very easygoing. He led Qin Chuan and Lu Zi to the mission hall's leisure area and sat down. Then, he began to clear up Qin Chuan's doubts. There are many missions in the mission hall. Us seniors divide these missions into 3 categories, which are solo missions, medium missions, and large missions. Solo missions are missions that can be completed by one person alone. These missions are generally relatively simple. Of course, the rewards aren't too high. At most, it's 10 credits. Medium missions are more difficult missions. They require the cooperation of many people to complete. The rewards for medium missions are relatively better. If less than 10 people complete the mission, each person can get 30 credits. Large-scale missions are more difficult and require more manpower. The corresponding rewards are also more generous. After the mission is completed, everyone will be able to get over 100 credits, and there will even be additional rewards. And in order to work together to complete medium and large-scale missions, us seniors have spontaneously established a few guild organizations with relatively loose management. Our goal is to gather people to work together to complete medium and large-scale missions. Our Black Wolf gang is one of these guilds. Speaking up to here, Qi Lu glanced at Wang Xian, who wasn't far away, and said to Qin Chuan and Lu Zi, "Wang Xian's Red Pagoda gang failed the last time they carried out a large mission. Many people died, so they're now recruiting people everywhere. It's normal for them to target you." Chapter 143. A lot of people died. Lu Zi was a little surprised. She knew that carrying out a mission would inevitably be dangerous, but she did not expect that there would be deaths. "What? Do you think that carrying out a mission is not risky at all?" Qi Lu looked at Qin Chuan and LVZ with a playful gaze and said, "The two of you are outstanding talents amongst the new students. Don't tell me you don't even have this little bit of common sense." Senior Qi must be joking. "Of course, we know that carrying out a mission will be risky, but we didn't expect that there would be deaths. And it sounds like a lot of people died." Qin Chuan smiled and said to Qi Lu, "Do people often die in the process of carrying out large-scale missions?" "Not really. It's just that the president of the Red Tower Society is a little brainless and did some stupid things, which killed a lot of people." Qi Lu shook his head. When the members of the guild carried out large-scale missions together, there were very few deaths. The Red Tower Society could be said to be an accident. "Thank you, Senior Qi, for clearing our doubts." Qin Chuan smiled and said to Qi Lu, "It's just a small token of appreciation." As Qin Chuan's voice fell, the Black Moon badge on Qi Li's chest suddenly flashed slightly. Qi Lu sensed a little and was surprised to find that there were 5 more credits under his student ID. And the person who transferred the credits to him was Qin Chuan. "We still have things to do, so we won't take up any more of your time. Goodbye." Qin Chuan and Lu Zi got up and politely said goodbye to Qi Lu. Then they walked toward the mission board in the mission hall. Qi Lu sat on the sofa and looked at Qin Chuan's back with a subtle expression. No one knew what he was thinking. When they were far away, Lu Zi whispered to Qin Chuan, "What Qi Lu told us should be basic knowledge. We can easily find it. Why did you give him 5 credits? Just treat it as making a friend." Qin Chuan chuckled and stood in front of an empty mission board. He stretched out his hand and gently swiped on the screen. Hundreds of missions appeared in the mission board. Solo mission. Help Professor Wang from the experimental department complete an experiment. 5 credits for 1 hour. Solo mission. kill 10 mountain ghosts, and bring back their limbs. Mission completion will reward 10 academic credits. Qin Xuan and Lu Zi seriously browsed through the individual missions on the mission board. They discovered that the most difficult mission was to kill a mountain ghost or a specific demonic beast. For them who were already at the 8th level of refinement stage, there was no danger to speak of. Involuntarily, Qin Xuan reached out and clicked on the list of medium-sized missions. Medium mission. Collect 100 drops of fire-attributed demon beast's heartblood. It is recommended that you head to the Red Flame volcano, which is 2,000 kilometers west of the Black Moon mountain range. The number of members is recommended to be around 8, and their strength should not be lower than the 10th level of the refinement stage. The reward for completing the mission is 200 credits, 5. The number 5 in the brackets at the end of this mission represented that there were already 5 teams that had accepted this mission. Once the number of teams that had accepted this mission reached the upper limit, this mission would naturally disappear from the mission board. According to what Qin Xuan knew, the Red Flame volcano was mostly filled with fire-attributed demon beasts. Among them, the most numerous were fire snakes. Their strength was roughly between the 7th and 9th level of the refinement stage. It could be said that it was relatively safe for students at the 10th level of the refinement stage to carry out this mission. Qin Xuan, look at this mission. Lu Zi suddenly stretched out her hand and pointed at a medium-sized mission on the mission board, hinting for Qin Xuan to look at it. Qin Xuan turned his gaze towards the medium-sized mission that Lu Zi pointed at. After seeing the mission requirements, he couldn't help but lightly raise his eyebrows. Medium mission. Collect 6 complete and unblemished water-attributed demon cores. The number of members is recommended to be around 8, and their strength should not be lower than the 10th level of the refinement stage. The reward for completing the mission is 300 credits, 0. This mission didn't seem to have any difficulty. It was just killing demon beasts to obtain demon cores. However, the crux of the problem was that the demon cores had to be complete and unblemished. When demon beasts fell into a desperate situation, they would generally enter a berserk state and damage their demon cores. They would even directly explode their demon cores. Therefore, it was very difficult to obtain a complete and unblemished demon core. Not to mention, this mission also had an attribute requirement. It was also because of this that no one was willing to accept this seemingly simple medium-sized mission. Qin Xuan, your lightning energy has a paralyzing effect. As long as we kill them one by one, we will definitely be able to obtain a complete and unblemished demon core. Moreover, we need to temper our strength through actual combat. Therefore, this mission is really very suitable for us. Lu Zi looked at Qin Xuan with an expectant gaze, waiting for Qin Xuan to make the final decision. Qin Xuan didn't say anything. He directly removed the Black Moon badge from his chest and accepted the medium-sized mission of collecting complete and unblemished water-attributed demon cores. He then established a small team. All right, I've already accepted the mission. Now you can join my team. Qin Xuan smiled as he handed the Black Moon badge to Lu Zi, indicating that Lu Zi should join the team and accept the entrusted mission together. Lu Zi was rather excited to join the small team established by Qin Xuan. Then, she said to Qin Xuan, "Say, should we give our team a resounding name? What name do you think is more suitable?" Seeing that Lu Zi was so concerned about the matter of naming, Qin Xuan was naturally willing to give the task of naming to Lu Zi. "Let's call it Illusory Thunder. How about it?" Lu Zi pondered for a moment and gave an answer that she thought was very good. "You are of the illusory attribute, and I am of the lightning attribute. Illusory Thunder, not a bad name." Qin Xuan chuckled and said to Lu Zi, "Let's go. We already have the mission. We should also make some preparations for carrying out the mission." Just as Qin Xuan and Lu Zi left the mission hall, many people who were paying attention to them checked the mission panel in front of them. When they saw that Qin Xuan had accepted a medium-sized mission of collecting complete and unblemished water-attributed demon cores, many people who were interested in Qin Xuan shook their heads in disappointment. Accepting a medium-sized mission at the beginning, and such a tricky mission, This kid thinks too highly of himself. In the leisure area, a feminine man wearing a red shirt looked at Chi, Lu sitting in front of him, and sneered, "I dare to bet that this kid will not be able to complete this mission." When this mission was first released, many people tried to accept it, but soon these people gave up on this mission. Water-attributed demon beasts were easy to find, but it was almost impossible to obtain complete and unblemished demon cores unless they had the strength of the Foundation establishment stage. But who would be bored enough to accept such a mission with the strength of the Foundation establishment stage? For a time, Qin Xuan and Lu Zi had been labeled as overconfident. At this time, who knew how many people were waiting to see them make a fool of themselves? Chapter 144. On the way back to the dormitory, Qin Xuan and Lu Zi bumped into Long Xiao and Baiyu by chance. Long Xiao looked at Qin Xuan and Lu Zi, who were walking toward her. She looked at Qin Xuan with a complicated expression. She thought that Qin Xuan had been obsessed with love and had fallen behind in cultivation. She didn't expect that Qin Xuan would surpass her in just 2 months. While Long Xiao was looking at Qin Xuan with a complicated gaze, LVZ suddenly took a step forward and faintly blocked Long Xiao's gaze from Qin Xuan. Long Xiao was stunned for a moment when he sensed LVZ's action. Soon after, he seemed to have thought of something as he smiled faintly and said, "Congratulations on obtaining the qualifications to enter the mission hall. However, Baiyu and I will catch up to you before long. Then I'll congratulate you in advance." Qin Xuan chuckled and asked Baiyu, "How's Chen Chongqing recently? I haven't seen him for a while." He saw the list and was very depressed. "He's working very hard now." Baiyu was still concise. She didn't show any envy or depression because Qin Xuan and Lu Zi had surpassed her. She still maintained her usual attitude. "When you can enter the mission hall, you can contact me and Xiao Chuan. At that time, we can carry out missions together." Lu Zi had a very good impression of Baiyu. After all, they had experienced life and death together and were trustworthy partners. After chatting for a while, Qin Xuan and Lu Zi said goodbye to Baiyu and Long Xiao. They prepared to go back to pack up and leave the school to carry out missions. At this time, Qin Xuan suddenly received a communication request from Ningya. After connecting the call, Ningya said to Qin Xuan faintly, "I already know that you have accepted a medium-sized mission. I believe that you and Lu Zi have the ability to complete this mission. However, there are some things that I still have to remind you of. Aside from accepting missions from the mission hall, you can also head to the Elven City's Talisman Array Masters Guild to train. This is a benefit that only official students of the Black Moon Combat Academy have. If you can pass the exam to become a Grade 2 Talisman Array Master, it will be very beneficial to you." Qin Xuan was a little surprised and couldn't help but ask, "Why are you only telling me this now?" "Because I just remembered." Qin Xuan was slightly helpless when he heard Ning Ya's simple answer. If he knew earlier that he could head to the Talisman Formation Masters Association to undergo the trials, then perhaps he wouldn't have accepted such a commission assignment. But now that he'd already accepted the assignment, it wasn't suitable to directly give it up, so he decided to complete it first. After ending the call with Ningya, Qin Xuan turned his gaze towards Lu Zi beside him and asked, "How much do you know about the Talisman Formation Masters Association?" "My grandfather once told me that before the end of the first half of the semester, the Academy will organize a test. Those who pass will be able to obtain a Grade 1 Talisman Array Master's badge from the Talisman Formation Masters Association and become a Talisman Array Master recognized by the Federation. I didn't think of participating in this test in advance. As for the Grade 2 Talisman Array Master's exam, I haven't considered it for the time being." If it wasn't for Ningya's reminder today, Lu Zi also wouldn't have thought of participating in the test in advance and undergoing the trials of the Talisman Formation Masters Association. Anyone who passed the test and obtained a Grade 1 Talisman Array Master certificate could undergo the trials of the Talisman Formation Masters Association. The so-called trials were to help the Talisman Formation Masters Association inscribe some talisman arrays and polish some materials. Although there wouldn't be any rewards if they did well, there wouldn't be any punishment if they didn't do well. It could be said that it was very suitable for beginner grade 1 talisman array masters to polish themselves. There was only one condition to pass the grade 1 talisman array masters exam, and that was to be proficient in inscribing 10 different grade 1 talisman arrays. In other words, those who were able to enter the Black Moon Combat Academy were all grade 1 talisman array masters. It was very easy for the students of the Black Moon Combat Academy to pass the grade 1 talisman array masters exam in their first year. However, passing the grade 2 talisman array masters exam was somewhat difficult. This was because the most basic condition to participate in the exam was to be proficient in inscribing 3 different grade 2 talisman arrays. It wasn't difficult to learn a grade 1 talisman array master, but it was somewhat difficult to learn a grade 2 talisman array master's exam. Because of this, although almost every new student of the Black Moon Combat Academy could pass the grade 1 talisman array master's exam, there are almost no students who could pass the grade 2 talisman array master's exam. In the AI chip that Ningya had given to Qinchuan, the Thunderbolt talisman array, the Flying Cloud talisman array, and the Two Heart talisman array were all grade 2 talisman arrays without exception. Apart from that, among the talisman arrays that Qinchuan had mastered, other than the Spirit-Absorbing talisman array and the Spirit-Injecting talisman array, which could not be revealed, he also knew how to draw the Lightning talisman array, which was a grade 1 talisman array, while the Lightning talisman array was a grade 2 talisman array. In other words, as long as Qinchuan learned 2 more grade 2 talisman arrays, he would be able to participate in the grade 2 talisman array masters exam. In the Talisman Array Masters Association, the treatment of a grade 2 talisman array master was naturally much better than that of a grade 1 talisman array master. As for Lu Zi, LV Xianyang had already taught her several grade 2 talisman arrays, and she had already learned one of them. Her progress was about the same as Qinchuan's. Let's complete this mission first. Qinchuan thought for a moment, and in the end, he decided to complete this mission first before thinking about the Talisman Array Master's exam. Qinchuan and Lu Zi had already decided on the location of the mission to collect water attribute demon cores. It would be at the Dragon Spirit Lake on the west side of the Black Moon Mountain Range. Legend had it that during the Great Chaos Era, the Dragon Spirit Lake was just an ordinary lake. Later on, because a true dragon was born, it was renamed the Dragon Spirit Lake. Although no true dragon had been born in the Dragon Spirit Lake to this day, it was a paradise for water attribute demon beasts. Many water attribute demon beasts resided in this lake. It could be said that this was the best place to collect water attribute demon cores. After setting their goal, Qinchuan and Lu Zi packed their luggage and left the school through the teleportation array. They headed to the Elf City, and from there, they set off for the Dragon Spirit Lake. After arriving at the Elf City, Qinchuan was able to check his mailbox because the optical computer had already been reconnected to the outside world. As expected, he saw messages from Zhou Lin and Yu Kai in his mailbox. However, what surprised Qinchuan was that Wang Bo had also sent him a few messages. Qinchuan first opened the message from his best friend, Wang Bo. As expected, Wang Bo's message was indeed related to joining the army. Brother, I've passed the preliminary test, and I'll be able to officially become a federal soldier soon. Brother, I've already passed the second test, and I'm now a great soldier. Brother, why aren't you replying to my messages? However, this might be the last message I'll send you during this period of time. I'm going to the East Mountain front lines soon. When we meet again, I'll definitely surprise you. Chapter 145. After reading Wang Bo's message, Qinchuan smiled. From the bottom of his heart, he sincerely wished his best friend a good future in the military. Hey, why are you only looking at Wang Bo's message? Aren't you going to look at the others? Lu Zi sat beside Qinchuan and glanced at Qinchuan's photon computer from time to time. She pretended to be calm as she said, "Why do you think the photon computer loses its signal in the mountains and can't communicate with the outside world? With our current technology, we should be able to easily solve this problem, right?" Qinchuan had considered this question before, but he hadn't been able to come up with a reasonable answer. According to common sense, With the Star Dragon Federation's current technology, it should be very easy to build a signal transmission station in the mountains. However, the Star Dragon Federation didn't do so and allowed the photon computer to lose its connection to the outside world. Take the Black Moon Combat Academy, for example. They were in the Azure Ancient City and could use the intranet normally. However, once they left the city and set foot in the Black Moon Mountain Range, the photon computer would lose its signal. Even leaving the Azure Ancient City for a single step would cause this result. There was no such thing as a decrease in signal, which was quite strange. Only people like us would think about this kind of thing. I don't think teacher has ever thought about this before. Perhaps there's a secret that no one knows about. Qin Chuan thought about it and felt that there must be some kind of secret hidden within. However, this secret wasn't something that they could come into contact with at their current stage. As they spoke, Qin Chuan opened Zhou Lin's message in his mailbox. It was very short and only had 2 sentences. Congratulations on successfully entering the Black Moon Combat Academy. Good luck. Lu Zi quietly glanced at the contents of the message and found that it wasn't what she had expected. She then focused on Yu Kai's message and said to Qin Chuan, "Open it and read it." When Qin Chuan heard Lu Zi's words and saw the unconcealed curiosity on Lu Zi's face, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he opened Yu Kai's message. "I've successfully entered the first academy of Star Dragon. Everything is fine. I hope everything goes well for you." It was also a simple greeting without any special content, but for some reason, Lu Zi felt that Yu Kai wanted to say something, but didn't. This should satisfy your curiosity, right? Qin Chuan smiled at Lu Zi and said, "Everything I said before was true. Right now, I just want to focus on cultivation. I have no interest in other things." Through these days of interaction, Qin Chuan could feel Lu Zi's feelings for him. He also had to admit that he didn't dislike Lu Zi. Interacting with Lu Zi made him feel relaxed and happy, but that was it. He didn't want to take their relationship to the next level. This wasn't because he wanted to maintain an ambiguous relationship with many women at the same time and be a scumbag. It was because he was very clear in his heart that he was at an age where he needed to work hard. Spending time on romance was a waste. If he was a golden core stage cultivator or even a nascent soul stage cultivator, he would definitely have a vigorous relationship with the girl he liked and even get married and have children. But right now, he was only an 8th level Qi condensation cultivator, a slightly bigger ant. He didn't have the qualifications to relax in the face of pressure and threats from all sides. Once he relaxed, what awaited him would be death. Qin Chuan didn't forget what Zhou Lin had warned him. The aristocratic families and sects wouldn't allow the birth of experts among the commoners. Therefore, compared to sweet love, he yearned for strength more. Love without strength would only drag others down. This was Qin Chuan's view on love. Before he had the strength to resist all external threats, he didn't want to drag others down with him. Lu Zi didn't think as much as Qin Chuan, but she could tell that Qin Chuan wasn't lying to her, nor was he being perfunctory. He was truly focused on cultivation. "You say it as if I want to marry you immediately." Lu Zi rolled her eyes at Qin Chuan and muttered, 3 years it is, who can't wait?" There were many demon beasts in the vicinity of the Dragon Spirit Lake, so there weren't many people. Qin Chuan and Lu Zi boarded a rented shuttle 100 miles away from the Dragon Spirit Lake and began a walk. The grassy plain stretched as far as the eye could see. The scenery was very beautiful, and there weren't any demon beasts around. It looked peaceful, but when the wind blew and bent the grass, the exposed white bones showed Qin Chuan and Lu Zi that this place wasn't as peaceful as it looked. As they got closer and closer to the Dragon Spirit Lake, Qin Chuan and Lu Zi finally saw some demon beasts. However, these demon beasts were somewhat intelligent and didn't dare to get too close to Qin Chuan and Lu Zi. They couldn't be bothered to fight with these demon beasts, so they just kept on walking. Finally, when the sky turned yellow, Qin Chuan and Lu Zi arrived at a place less than a kilometer away from the Dragon Spirit Lake. Standing there, they could clearly see the clear water of the Dragon Spirit Lake. It was a beautiful sight to behold. "The scenery is really good," Qin Chuan smiled and said to Lu Zi, It's a pity that there are too many demon beasts. If it weren't for these demon beasts, the Dragon Spirit Lake might not be able to maintain its current state. Lu Zi pursed her lips and said, maybe this place will become a high-end residential area, and the Dragon Spirit Lake will become a natural swimming pool for some rich people. Don't say any more. I already have an image in my head. Qin Xuan grinned and said, let's set up camp here and start tomorrow morning. With that, Qin Xuan threw his luggage on the ground and said to Lu Zi, let's split up the work. I'll chase these demon beasts away, and you'll be in charge of setting up the tents. Just as Qin Xuan was about to chase away a demon beast on the left, the calm surface of the Dragon Spirit Lake suddenly rippled. Then, huge waves began to roll, and a low roar could be heard from the lake, shaking the mountains. Roar. Following the roar, all the demon beasts around the Dragon Spirit Lake prostrated themselves on the ground and trembled. Qin Xuan and Lu Zi's expressions changed drastically. Why does this sound so similar to the legendary dragon's roar? Qin Xuan looked at the rolling waves on the Dragon Spirit Lake in shock. Instinctively, he felt that something was wrong. Right at this moment, an azure figure suddenly leaped out from the Dragon Spirit Lake and charged into the sky. At the same time, the low roar from before suddenly became clear, and it was like a primordial beast had awakened. Even the heavens and the earth dimmed. Old dragon, I'll borrow your dragon son today, and I'll repay you generously in the future. Don't make a fuss. A cold and emotionless voice sounded in the sky. Then a huge green sword fell from the sky like a galaxy and slashed at the Dragon Spirit Lake, causing huge waves to ripple. Chapter 146. Rumble, 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 rumble. Huge waves rose from the Dragon Spirit Lake, almost blotting out the sun. The terrifying collision caused all living creatures within 100 miles to tremble in fear. Qin Xuan, who was still in a state of shock, finally regained his senses when he saw the huge wave crashing down from the sky. He abruptly pushed LVZ, who was beside him, and shouted, "Run!" When she heard Qin Xuan's reminder, LVZ seemed as if she'd awoken from a dream, and she hurriedly turned around and fled. However, no matter how swift they fled, how could they avoid the assault of the enormous waves? In the time of a single breath, they were drowned by the waves that crashed down. When everything calmed down and the water returned to the Dragon Spirit Lake, Qin Xuan, who had been slapped on the beach by the huge waves, finally struggled to his feet. He stared at the Dragon Spirit Lake, which had almost half of its water evaporated. He was so shocked that he was speechless. When the huge waves crashed down, Qin Xuan pulled Lu Zi with him and dug into the soft sand. If they had not made that decision in the nick of time, he and Lu Zi would have died in the huge waves. The terrifying power contained in the waves was definitely not something that a mere chi refinement stage cultivator like him could withstand. Cough, cough. Qin Xuan, are you all right? Lu Zi crawled out of the hole behind Qin Xuan. She looked in the direction of the Dragon Spirit Lake in horror and said to Qin Xuan, "There really is a dragon in the Dragon Spirit Lake." They had heard what the cultivator in the sky said clearly. There really was a dragon in the Dragon Spirit Lake. That person shouldn't be a golden core stage cultivator, right? Compared to the real dragon in the Dragon Spirit Lake, Qin Xuan was more interested in the powerful cultivator who had created such a huge wave with a single sword strike. That kind of majestic power made people feel respect from the bottom of their hearts. He's definitely a nascent soul stage cultivator. He might even be a powerful cultivator who has materialized the domain. Lu Zi answered Qin Xuan's question with certainty. Her grandfather was a golden core stage cultivator, so she knew very well that there was no way a golden core stage cultivator could do something like that. Is this the power of a nascent soul stage cultivator? Qin Xuan muttered in a low voice. The shock in his eyes gradually dissipated and turned into determination and desire. Such a powerful and almost unstoppable force was exactly what he desperately wanted. Such a huge change in the Dragon Spirit Lake will definitely alarm the nearby cultivators. Let's leave quickly. LVZ was a little worried. If they were discovered by some cultivators with evil intentions, they might encounter trouble. Of course. But before we go, let's complete the mission. Qinchuan looked around and pursed his lips slightly. He said to Lu Zi, "Look, we're surrounded by the corpses of demonic beasts." After hearing Qinchuan's reminder, Lu Zi noticed that there were countless corpses of demonic beasts scattered around them. They were all dead. Obviously, these demonic beasts had all died in the earth-shattering collision. Now that their corpses had been brought to the shore by the huge wave, it was a good thing for them. Qinchuan and Lu Zi were also injured in the previous incident, but this did not affect them from harvesting demonic cores. Qinchuan casually opened the skull of a huge crab and easily found a complete water-type demonic core. In just a few minutes, the two of them had harvested nearly 20 demonic cores. Just when the two of them felt that it was about time to leave, a terrifying roar suddenly came from the dragon spirit lake. "Greedy humans, you all deserve to die." Hearing this familiar roar, Qinchuan and Lu Zi, who were happily harvesting demonic cores, turned pale. They immediately ran into the distance. At this moment, two thin green ropes suddenly stretched out from the dragon spirit lake. In the blink of an eye, they reached Qinchuan and Lu Zi and tied them up. With a gentle tug, the two of them were pulled into the murky dragon spirit lake. At the instant he entered the water, Qinchuan felt as if a 500 kilograms hammer had smashed fiercely onto his chest, and his face immediately turned pale while he spat out a mouthful of blood. On the other hand, Lu Zi, who had a comparatively weaker body, fainted on the spot. After she fainted, the rope released her and allowed her to float on the surface of Dragon Spirit Lake and drift with the flow of the lake. Under the pull of the rope, Qinchuan quickly entered the depths of the Dragon Spirit Lake. Soon, he arrived at the bottom of the Dragon Spirit Lake, in the middle of a collapsed palace. After entering the palace ruins, the rope suddenly released Qinchuan. After Qinchuan regained his freedom, he immediately took out the underwater breathing device and put it on. Then, he sat cross-legged on the ground and began to cultivate the thunder-devouring art. Although Qinchuan knew that it was very dangerous to cultivate at such a critical moment, he had no choice. He was severely injured, and he was at the bottom of the lake. If he did not stabilize his injuries in time, he would definitely die. 10 minutes later, Qinchuan finally stabilized the injuries on his body. He stopped circulating his energy and slowly opened his eyes to look ahead. A huge green dragon head was less than a meter away from Qinchuan. It was staring at him with a pair of golden eyes. When he saw the dragon head, even though Qinchuan was already mentally prepared, he was still shocked. He stared at the dragon head in front of him in shock, and it took him a while to calm down. He pursed his lips and said, "Junior greets Senior." The green dragon looked at Qinchuan indifferently and said in a dignified voice, "Human, I wanted to kill you." I know. Of course, Qinchuan knew that the green dragon wanted to kill him. However, since he was still alive, it meant that there was a possibility of negotiation between him and the green dragon. Although it sounded unbelievable, it was the truth. You don't know. The green dragon suddenly raised its head and roared angrily. Its body swayed and made clanging sounds. At this time, Qinchuan noticed that the green dragon's body was wrapped in 8 black chains that penetrated deep into its flesh. Every time it swayed, these chains would cause serious damage to its body. "My son is dead. That damn thing took away the dragon's soul." The azure dragon turned its body and revealed a small blue dragon that was about 10 meters long lying on the ground in front of Qinchuan. This small dragon no longer had any signs of life and was deathly still. Qinchuan knew that the damned thing the green dragon was cursing must be the powerful cultivator who had at least the strength of a nascent soul stage. However, that was a human cultivator after all. He could not help the green dragon to curse the strong human cultivator. "He killed my son. Then I will kill his grandson and let him suffer the same pain as me." The green dragon bowed its head again and looked at Qinchuan. It said indifferently, "You, help me kill his grandson. Otherwise die." Chapter 147. In the face of the Azure Dragon's coercion, Qin Chuan helplessly laughed bitterly and said, "Senior, the human senior is at least a nascent soul stage cultivator, and I am merely a chi refinement stage cultivator. If he wanted to kill his grandson, I can't do it." Qin Chuan was telling the truth. It was almost impossible for him to kill the grandson of a nascent soul stage cultivator. The Azure Dragon's eyes narrowed, and he said in a low voice, "If you had agreed just now, you would be a dead man. I know that you're not easy to deceive, so I have always been telling the truth." Hearing the Azure Dragon's words, Qin Chuan heaved a sigh of relief. He had thought about whether he should agree and lie to the Azure Dragon for the time being. He would talk about other things after he escaped. However, after thinking about it, Qin Chuan finally decided to tell the truth. He was worried that he would be too smart for his own good. "Do you know why I didn't kill you just now?" The Azure Dragon slowly turned his head and looked at the dead little dragon with grief in his eyes. He said in a low voice, "His mother was a thunder dragon. He inherited his mother's excellent bloodline and is also a pure thunder dragon." Qin Chuan understood. His life was probably saved because his talent rune was the same as the baby dragon's. That was why the Azure Dragon showed mercy at the end. "When I was trapped here, Qing Er was not yet an adult. In order to save me, his mother went to the demon territory to find a way to break the seal. She left for 100 years, and there was no news from her. I originally wanted to let Qing Er search for his mother after he came of age, but I didn't expect that just as Qing Er came of age, someone with ulterior motives would sneak into the lake and kill Qing Er, forcefully extracting Qing Er's dragon soul. I hate it." The Azure Dragon roared, and the dragon spirit lake once again churned with huge waves, rumbling endlessly. Qin Chuan was curious and could not help but ask, "Senior, why were you sealed here? Why was I sealed here? You should ask the ancestors of your human race about this." Azure Dragon sneered. "During the Great Chaos, the Demon Clan and the Human Clan were allies. However, the Human Clan betrayed us and lured the experts of the Demon Clan into the Human Clan's territory. Then, you forcefully sealed the experts of the Demon Clan. Today, I have been in the Dragon Spirit Lake for 8,000 years." Hearing the Azure Dragon's words, Qin Chuan couldn't help but be stunned. 8,000 years. The war between the human race and the demon race had lasted for exactly 8,000 years. In Qin Chuan's history textbook, it was clearly written that the demon race was greedy and wanted to monopolize this vast planet. That was why the war between the demon race and the human race broke out. Qin Chuan had always thought so too. However, according to Azure Dragon's words, it was clear that it was the human race who betrayed the demon race first, which infuriated the demon race and led to the outbreak of a war between the two races that lasted for 8,000 years. "Senior, where are the experts of your demon clan sealed?" Suddenly, Qin Chuan seemed to have thought of something and couldn't help but ask Azure Dragon. "In the human clan's territory, there are experts of the demon clan sealed in the mountains and rivers." Speaking of the past, Azure Dragon's eyes could not help but burn with rage. If they had not trusted the human race wrongly, the experts of the Demon Clan would not have been reduced to such a state. "I understand." Qin Chuan finally understood why the Star Dragon Federation, with its advanced technology, had never built signal transmission stations in the mountains and rivers. "Senior, I have another question. Who was that person just now?" Qin Chuan was very curious. Who was the human race expert who had cruelly killed the son of Azure Dragon? His name is Qin Chongxiao. He is from the Qin clan, one of the 4 great families of the Star Dragon Federation. Hearing the Azure Dragon's words, Qin Chuan could not help but be shocked. He did not expect that powerful human race cultivator to be from the Qin clan, one of the 4 great families. "All right, now that I have answered all your questions, it's time for you to make a choice." Azure Dragon looked at Qin Chuan coldly. "Either you agree to my request and kill Qin Chongxiao's grandson to avenge my son, or you will die here, together with the girl floating on the lake outside." Qin Chuan fell silent. If he was alone, perhaps he would choose to die. However, Lu Zi was still outside, and he did not want to implicate Lu Zi. "Senior, I'm afraid I will disappoint you with my ability. In the end, Qin Chuan still wanted to struggle. With his current ability, he would only be courting death if he went to the Qin clan to kill them. Ah, are you asking for benefits from me? Then I will give you benefits. Azure Dragon sneered. Suddenly, he used the water flow to roll up the little dragon's body and dropped it in front of Qin Chuan. Looking at his dead son, grief flashed across Azure Dragon's eyes. After the grief, his eyes suddenly became resolute. Under Qin Chuan's shocked gaze, Azure Dragon directly extracted the dragon's blood from the little dragon's body. He forcefully purified the dragon's blood, which contained boundless power, and then injected it into Qin Chuan's body. The moment the dragon's blood entered his body, Qin Chuan could not help but let out a sharp howl. The boundless power seemed to be bursting his body, tormenting his body and nerves in incomparable pain. Use your cultivation method to absorb the power in the dragon's blood. Otherwise, you will really die. With Azure Dragon's reminder, Qin Chuan quickly used the thunder-devouring skill and frantically refined the dragon's blood in his body. After half a day, Qin Chuan's body gradually returned to its normal state. Looking at the grayish-black filth on Qin Chuan's body, Azure Dragon nodded slightly and said, "After absorbing this dragon's blood, your body has received great benefits. Your future achievements will definitely be limitless." Hearing Azure Dragon's words, Qin Chuan slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was complicated as he looked at the little dragon's body, which had become slightly thin and weak. He then asked Azure Dragon, "Senior, you sacrificed your son's dragon's blood to help me. Aren't you afraid that I will go back on my word when I get out?" If you can ask this question, it means that you don't intend to go back on your word. However, I still planted a restriction in your body. Within 3 years, if you don't bring the life of Qin Chongxiao's grandson to me, the restriction will activate. Your body will explode, and you will die. Even the gods won't be able to save you. I understand. Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said, "I will definitely come back to see you within 3 years. Senior, please tell me your name." "My name is Song Hao." Song Hao sent Qin Chuan out of the Dragon Spirit Lake to Lu Zi, who was floating on the lake's surface. After that, Song Hao slowly looked at the little dragon in front of him. "Qin father will avenge you. I want that old man Qin Chongxiao to personally witness the Qin family's descendants killing each other. I want him to feel the pain of dying before his own." Chapter 148. Qin Chuan. Horrified screams rang out in the silent night, shattering the silence of the night. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Qin Chuan, who was warming himself by the fire, saw that Lu Zi had woken up from her nightmare. He hurried to Lu Zi's side to comfort Lu Zi. Lu Zi, who was still in shock, saw Qin Chuan sitting beside her. She gradually calmed down and heaved a sigh of relief. "We're still alive." When the green rope, which was actually Azure Dragon Song Hao's whiskers, wrapped around Lu Zi, thought that she and Qin Chuan were going to die in the Dragon Spirit Lake. She did not expect to wake up from her coma, and that Qin Chuan was fine too. Something special must have happened here. "Yes, we're still alive." Qin Chuan sighed. "It's good to be alive." Qin Chuan did not explain, and Lu Zi did not take the initiative to ask. She looked around and asked, "Are we still in the Dragon Spirit Lake?" "Yes." Qin Chuan nodded. "You were unconscious and heavily injured. I did not dare to bring you on a long journey. I could only set up camp around the Dragon Spirit Lake. The Dragon Spirit Lake is especially lively in the evening." Qin Chongxiao and Song Hao's collision caused a huge commotion and attracted the attention of the cultivators around the Dragon Spirit Lake. At dusk, hundreds of figures came to the Dragon Spirit Lake to check out the situation. There were also people fighting over the various demon corpses and demon cores scattered around the lake. It was a lively scene. In such a chaotic situation, Qin Chuan left with the injured Lu Zi without much attention. "Thank you." Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan and said, "You saved me again." "Don't say that. We're partners." Qin Chuan smiled and said, "Our mission has been successfully completed. Have a good rest tonight, and we will return to school tomorrow morning." At night, Lu Zi had already fallen asleep, but Qin Chuan was still awake. He sat cross-legged in his tent, quietly feeling the changes in the power in his body. Ever since his body had been refined by the dragon blood, Qin had always felt that his body was filled with inexhaustible power, as if he could collapse a mountain with a single punch. After quietly cultivating the thunder-devouring art, Qin slowly stretched out his right hand. With a thought, a blue dragon scale slowly emerged on the back of his hand. This scale was planted on the back of his hand by Tsang Hao before he left. This dragon scale could help him sense the location of Tsang Qing's dragon soul. At the same time, it also recorded a secret skill called the dragon transformation art. Transforming a human body into a dragon, one can obtain the power of the divine dragon. The next morning, although Lu Zi had yet to recover from her injuries, as long as she didn't fight, she was basically fine and could travel normally. After Qin and Lu Zi packed their luggage, they set off to leave the Dragon Spirit Lake. On the way, they met many cultivators who had heard the news and came over. It was obvious that these people were very curious about what had happened at the Dragon Spirit Lake yesterday. Although Qin and Lu Zi knew a little about what had happened, neither of them said much. Soon, Qin and Lu Zi returned to the Elven City and used the Black Moon Combat Academy's teleportation array to return to school. After returning to school, Qin immediately connected to the school's intranet to see if there were any news about the Dragon Spirit Lake uploaded. As expected, he saw news about the Dragon Spirit Lake on the school's intranet, but the description wasn't very detailed. This news was posted on the school's intranet yesterday afternoon. It seems like the school's intelligence network reacted very quickly. Lu Zi noticed Qin's actions and could roughly guess what Qin was thinking. Let's go in hand in the mission. Qin and Lu Zi went to the mission hall again and coincidentally met Qi Lu again. When Qi Lu saw Qin and Lu Zi, he was slightly stunned. Then he smiled and asked, "Didn't you two accept the mission? Why? Don't tell me you've already completed it?" Qi Lu knew that Qin and Lu Zi's mission was to collect 6 perfect water-type demon cores, so he didn't think that Qin and Lu Zi had already completed the mission. In his opinion, Qin and Lu Zi were here to cancel the mission. "We were just lucky." Qin smiled and didn't explain too much. However, Qi Lu was stunned. He asked with some surprise, "You've already completed the mission? It's only been 2 days. We're a little lucky." Qin chuckled and said to Qi Lu, "Senior Qi, if there's nothing else, then we'll go hand in the mission first." After that, Qin ignored Qi Lu, who was stunned, and walked to the mission hall with Lu Zi. Qi Lu stood in place and looked at Qin and Lu Zi in disbelief. He whispered, "With their strength, how could they complete the mission so easily?" Although Qin and Lu Zi were handing in a mission for the first time, they still knew the basic procedure. They only needed to hand in 6 perfect demon cores to the mission hall staff. After verification, the mission would be considered completed. "Students, the demon cores you handed in have been checked and confirmed to be perfect. The corresponding credits have been sent to the team captain's student number. You can decide how to distribute the credits." "Thank you." Qin thanked the staff with a sweet voice and then took out his Black Moon badge to check the credits. Sure enough, there were 300 extra credits under his credits. Now he had a total of 325 credits. Qin straightforwardly gave 150 credits to Lu Zi and said with a smile, "Now we should be considered quite rich among the freshmen." Although each of them only had less than 200 credits, compared to the freshmen who had yet to carry out a mission, they were indeed rich. What do you plan to do next? Lu Zi was also very happy to receive the credits. She planned to go back and see if there were any good things worth exchanging in the exchange system of the school's logistics department. Next, I'll learn the 3 talisman arrays that the teacher gave me. Then I'll consider if I want to take the 2nd rank talisman array master qualification test. For the current Qin, nothing was more important than increasing his strength. After all, he still had an agreement with Azure Dragon Tsang Hao. Within 3 years, he must avenge his dead son, Tsang Qing. Otherwise, he would die. The opponent he had never met before was a member of the Qin family, one of the 4 great families. If he didn't cultivate diligently, then don't mention killing the other party. He might not even have the qualifications to exchange blows with the other party. Why is it always a 3-year agreement? Qin bitterly smiled. He felt that he and the number 3 were really fated. Chapter 149. After leaving the mission hall, Qin and Lu Zi returned to the dormitory and began a long period of cultivation. However, this time, the two mainly focused on comprehending glyph arrays. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. In this half a month, Qin finally completed the inscription of the Thunderbolt glyph array. He could be considered to have mastered the second-level glyph array. During this process, Qin also discovered some problems. When he first learned the Thunder Manipulation glyph array, he only spent a few days to learn it. The process was relatively easy. However, when he learned the Thunderbolt glyph array, the process was quite difficult. However, in terms of difficulty, the Thunder Manipulation glyph array and the Thunderbolt glyph array were almost the same. Logically speaking, the latter should not take more time than the former. After thinking about it, Qin thought of the most likely reason. The reason for this situation might be related to the thunder-devouring art that he cultivated. The Thunder Manipulation glyph array was a glyph array that came with the thunder-devouring art. It could be considered as a small branch of the thunder-devouring art system. Although the Thunderbolt glyph array was also a lightning glyph array, it did not have much connection with the thunder-devouring art. It was probably because of this reason that it was particularly difficult for him to learn the Thunderbolt glyph array. However, compared to other glyph arrays, his learning speed was already very fast. Take Lu Zi, for example. She was still stuck at the last crucial point of the Flying Cloud glyph array. She was unable to master it thoroughly. It was estimated that she would need at least another 10 days to barely master the Flying Cloud glyph array. And to master it proficiently, it would probably be a matter of a month. The Flying Cloud glyph array belonged to the Illusion glyph array. Qin's talent Rune attribute was Lightning attribute. It was not impossible to learn the Flying Cloud glyph array, but the process was relatively slow. Therefore, when choosing the third-level glyph array that he was about to learn, Qin finally chose the Two-Heart glyph array that did not have any special attribute requirements. Just as Qin was earnestly studying the Two-Heart glyph array, the other 7 official students, excluding Qin and Lu Zi, had also successfully cultivated to the 8th level of the refinement stage, obtaining the qualifications to enter the mission hall. On this day, with Long Xiao in the lead, 7 official students enter the mission hall together. Regarding the arrival of these 7 newcomers, the senior students who were wandering around the mission hall gave a rather warm welcome. Hello, juniors. My name is Wang Xian. I'm your 3rd-year senior. Wang Xian walked toward the crowd with a smile on his face. He said to Long Xiao, who was clearly the leader, "You are all new here, so you must not understand many of the rules of the mission hall. How about I explain it to you? You're already a junior, but you're still in the refinement stage?" Facing the smiling Wang Xian, Long Xiao did not have much interest because she could clearly feel that Wang Xian's aura was not much stronger than hers. Hearing this, Wang Xian's expression changed slightly. He said to Long Xiao somewhat helplessly, "It's not that I don't want to work hard, but without the foundation elixir, no matter how hard I work, it would be a waste of energy." Hearing Wang Xian's explanation, Long Xiao nodded lightly. It was indeed as Wang Xian said. Without the foundation elixir, it was practically impossible to rely on one's own strength to break through to the foundation stage. It was understandable that Wang Xian was stuck at the 13th level of the refinement stage because he did not have the foundation elixir. "Long Xiao, let's go." In the crowd, Blue Pool's gaze was somewhat impatient as he glanced at Wang Xian and said, "A 3rd-year auditing student who's still in the refinement stage. No matter how you look at it, he's trash. Why are we wasting our breath on him?" Faced with Blue Pool's disdain, Wang Xian's expression could not help but become unsightly. He forced a smile and said to Blue Pool, "Although I'm still an auditing student, no matter what, I'm still a few years older than you. You're being too disrespectful by speaking so rudely." "Respect?" Blue Pool looked at Wang Xian with disdain. Although I'm only in the 8th level of the refinement stage now, it's not difficult for me to defeat you. I think you shouldn't show off in front of me, lest you ask for trouble. All right, shut up, Blue Pool. Long Xiao frowned and glanced at Blue Pool, then nodded slightly at Wang Xian. She walked around Wang Xian and headed towards the service staff in the mission hall. Clearly, although she did not like Blue Pool's arrogance, she agreed with what he said. There was indeed no need for them to waste time here with Wang Xian. Everyone followed behind Long Xiao and left. Wang Xian stood in the same spot and looked at Blue Pool with a gloomy expression. His fists were clenched tightly, and it was as if he was going to grind his teeth into pieces. Although I, Wang Xian, have ordinary strength, I've been in this mission hall for 3 years. Who doesn't give me some face? You're just a new student. So what if you're an official student? I'll definitely let you know the price of offending me. Your companions will be implicated by you. Ding dong. The crisp sound of the doorbell rang, disturbing Qin Chuan, who was focused on studying the Two Hearts Talisman array. Without raising his head, he asked directly, Lele, who's outside? Student Qin Chuan, the person standing outside the dormitory and pressing the doorbell, is student Chen Chongxing. After receiving Lele's reply, Qin Chuan stopped studying the Two Hearts Talisman array. He got up and walked towards the living room downstairs. As he walked, he said to the mini Lele beside him, Open the door and let him in. Following Qin Chuan's words, the door to the dormitory slowly opened, and Lele's sweet voice rang out at the same time. Student Chen Chongxing, on behalf of student Qin Chuan, I welcome you. Hearing this, Chen Chongxing, who was standing outside the door, forced a smile and walked in. The moment he entered, he saw Qin Chuan brewing tea in the living room. I don't usually drink tea, so I don't know whether this tea tastes good or bad. Just make do with it. Qin Chuan chuckled as he looked at Chen Chongxing, who walked in and asked, Why are you so interested in looking for me? All right, I almost forgot to congratulate you. Now you're at the 8th level of the Qi refining stage, right? Facing the hospitable Qin Chuan, Chen Chongxing sighed helplessly and said, I originally thought that after cultivating to the 8th level of the Qi refining stage, my life would soar to the sky. But who knew that before I could take off, I would encounter a setback? Qin Chuan raised his eyebrows slightly and asked, What happened? It's all because of that idiot Blue Pool. Chen Chongxing said to Qin Chuan somewhat angrily, This Blue Pool spoke rudely on the first day we entered the mission hall and provoked a 3rd-year fellow. In the end, that fellow was a deacon of a guild and had a lot of subordinates. He always interfered with us when we were doing missions. Now, 10 days have passed, and we haven't even completed the most basic solo mission. Don't you think that's infuriating? That's really unfortunate. Qin Chuan looked at Chen Chongxing with a smile and said, You came to find me because you want me to stand up for you. Chapter 150. Boss, we were implicated by Blue Pool. We only came to you because we had no choice. Chen Chongxing put on a bitter face and said to Qin Chuan, I didn't want to trouble you at first, but it'd be too embarrassing if I had to use my family's connections over such a small matter. When Qin Chuan heard this, he chuckled and said to Chen Chongxing, All right, stop acting pitiful with me. Tell me, who did you offend? His name is Wang Xian. He's a steward from some Red Tower society. Chen Chongxing helplessly said to Qin Chuan, This guy is a wily old fox in the mission hall. If I'd known this guy had such great influence, I wouldn't have gone with that unlucky Blue Pool. So it's him. A look of understanding appeared on Qin Chuan's face. Qin Chuan still had some impression of Wang Xian. Why, boss, do you know him? Not really. I've only seen him before. He might not give me face. Speaking of which, how many people know you came to look for me? I wanted to come myself. The others don't know. Speaking of this matter, Chen Chongxing felt a little embarrassed. After all, everyone else had been silently enduring it, wanting to rely on their own strength to resolve this problem. Only he had failed to live up to expectations and came to Qin Chuan for help. Instead of looking for me to resolve this matter, why don't you look for Lu Zi? Qin Chuan pointed out a path for Chen Chongxing and said, Lu Zi's grandfather is a teacher in the logistics department. He's in charge of the distribution of cultivation resources to the students in the entire school. Lu Zi definitely won't dare to offend Lu Zi. Therefore, if you look for her, she'll definitely be able to resolve this problem. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Qin Changxing's eyes couldn't help but light up. He hurriedly asked, "Where is Lu Zi?" Qin Chuan slapped his forehead and said, "I almost forgot. Lu Zi is currently in seclusion at her grandfather's place, seeking a breakthrough. Forget it. Let me resolve this matter." Qin Changxing asked hesitantly, "Can you do it?" Qin Chuan rolled his eyes at Qin Changxing, speechless. "Aren't you afraid of getting beaten up for talking like that?" Qin Chuan returned to the mission hall after nearly 2 months. Coincidentally, he bumped into Long Zhao's group of 6 outside the door. At this moment, Long Zhao's group also saw Qin Chuan and Qin Changxing. Seeing the two of them walking over together, everyone quickly guessed some possibilities. Their gazes towards Qin Chuan and Qin Changxing could not help but become subtle. "Hello everyone, long time no see." Qin Chuan greeted everyone with a smile and did not mention anything about Wang Xian. "Qin Chuan, why are you here?" Long Zhao looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated expression, then looked at Qin Changxing. She felt very upset. During this period of time, she had already heard that Qin Chuan and Lu Zi had accepted a medium-sized mission on the day they entered the mission hall, and they had completed it in just a few days. Now that 10 days had passed, they had not even completed a single mission. Compared to Qin Chuan, their performance was just too poor. "I've been in seclusion studying formations recently. Now that I feel bored, I've come out for a walk." Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Long Zhao, "Why don't we go in together?" No one rejected Qin Chuan's suggestion. They walked into the mission hall with Qin Chuan. On the way, Bai Yu slowly walked to Qin Chuan's side and said to Qin Chuan, "He told you everything?" "Yes." Qin Chuan nodded. "It's not a big deal." "Useless." Bai Yu gazed at Qin Changxing calmly, but it made Qin Changxing feel extremely awkward and embarrassed. After they walked into the mission hall, they attracted the attention of many people. When the seniors saw that it was Qin Chuan and the new students, they couldn't help but reveal a playful smile. "Yo, aren't these the new students who can't even complete a single mission? All of them look pretty good, but their martial arts skills are just SOSO. Ha ha, these people look down on auditing students, but in the end, their performance is even worse than auditing students." Hearing the unbridled mockery from the seniors in the mission hall, everyone's expressions turned incomparably furious and gloomy. Blue Pool was even more infuriated. He shouted at the seniors, "What are you guys so arrogant for? Do you have what it takes to fight me one-on-one?" "One-on-one? Ha ha ha. We're not going to fight you one-on-one. We're going to make it so that you can't even complete a single mission." Among the seniors, Wang Xian slowly walked out with a cold expression. When he saw Qin Chuan standing in the middle of the crowd, he couldn't help but frown slightly. "Senior Wang, long time no see." Qin Chuan took a step forward and smiled at Wang Xian, appearing very natural. "Qin Chuan, I advise you not to interfere in this matter." Wang Xian gazed at Qin Chuan with a slightly gloomy gaze and said, "Some people don't know the rules, so they should be taught a lesson. It's true that people who don't respect seniors should be punished, but it's a little inappropriate to implicate the innocent." Qin Chuan smiled and said to Wang Xian, "I've already heard about this matter and understand Senior Wang's painstaking efforts. How about this? Let the person involved apologize to you in front of everyone, and this matter will be over. What do you think?" Wang Xian didn't say anything upon hearing this, but Blue Pool was already unwilling. "Qin Chuan, who asked you to play the good guy here? You don't have to interfere in my matters. I can settle it myself." Blue Pool stared at Qin Chuan furiously. It was absolutely impossible for him to apologize to trash like Wang Xian. "Qin Chuan, you heard it too. It's not that I don't want to give you face, but some people don't need your kindness." Wang Xian sneered, and a playful expression appeared on his face. He wanted to see how Qin Chuan was going to resolve the problem before him. "Senior Wang, you saw it too. Among so many people, he's the only one who's unconvinced. You should be the only one who offended you back then. Since that's the case, why don't you let the others off?" Qin Chuan gazed at Wang Xian meaningfully and said, Senior Wang should at least give me this bit of face, right? Hearing this, Wang Xian took a deep look at Qin Chuan and said, "You're right. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. I agree to this matter. In the future, I'll only make things difficult for this guy. I don't care about the others." Then, "Thank you very much." Qin Chuan smiled, then turned around and said to Long Xiao and the rest, "All right, the matter has been resolved. No one will make things difficult for you guys in the future." When everyone heard Qin Chuan's words, not only did they not feel relieved at all, but they also felt a little aggrieved. All of them were favored by the heavens. Why should they lower their heads to trash like Wang Xian, who might not even have a chance of reaching the foundation establishment stage of his lifetime? You guys think it's too embarrassing for me to do this, right? Seeing the changes in everyone's expressions, Qin Chuan knew what they were thinking. He chuckled and said calmly, "I'll make a bet with you guys. If Blue Pool doesn't make use of his family's connections, he might not be able to resolve the matter before him, even if he's given a year. Do you believe it? The same goes for all of you." Chapter 151. What right do you have to say that? Among the official students, Yang Yu, who was on rather good terms with Qin Chuan, looked at him indignantly. He was very displeased with Qin Chuan's behavior. Faced with Yang Yu's fury, Qin Chuan pursed his lips slightly and said, "You feel that me lowering my head and admitting my mistake on your behalf is a disgrace to all of you. By saying this, I'm insulting Blue Pool and intentionally belittling him. Right?" "That's right." Yang Yu looked at Qin Chuan with an extremely dark gaze. That was what he thought. Moreover, he also felt that Qin Chuan had no right to represent them. "I understand." The corners of Qin Chuan's lips curled up slightly. He then turned to look at Wang Xian and said, "Senior Wang, there's still someone here who's indignant. If you don't mind, you can target him together with Blue Pool." Hearing this, Wang Xian laughed and said, "No problem. Targeting one is targeting, and targeting two is also targeting. I don't care." Hearing the conversation between Qin Chuan and Wang Xian, the official students' expressions couldn't help but change slightly. Yang Yu was even more furious. He pointed at Qin Chuan's nose and scolded, "Qin Chuan, as our class monitor, not only are you not helping us, you're even joining forces with others to bully us. Do you still have any shame?" Faced with Yang Yu's rebuke, the smile on Qin Chuan's face gradually disappeared. He slowly walked up to Yang Yu and looked at him with an indifferent gaze. Seeing Yang Yu's tough appearance, he sneered and said, "You were the one who said that I have no right to represent you. Now, you're the one who says that I'm not helping you. What exactly do you want me to do?" Yang Yu gritted his teeth and said, "If you really want to help us, you should fight with these seniors. Defeat them and help us vent our anger so that they won't dare to target us in the future." When Yang Yu said this, Long Xiao and the others frowned. They all felt that Yang Yu's words were too much. Let boss fight with these seniors? An 8th level Qi refinement cultivator challenging a 13th level Qi refinement cultivator? Is there something wrong with your brain? Don't you know who caused all this trouble in your heart? Why should boss bear this responsibility? Chen Chongqing was enraged. He was the one who invited Qin Chuan to resolve the trouble. Now, Yang Yu was pushing all the blame to Qin Chuan alone. How could this make sense? Even Blue Pool has the guts to challenge the seniors to have a fight with him. Yang Yu didn't think he was wrong. Instead, he felt that Qin Chuan was too timid and didn't dare to make a move. When Blue Pool, who was standing by the side, heard his good friend mention his name, he couldn't help but sneer and say, "If these seniors have the guts to make a move against me, I guarantee that each and every one of them will come to a terrible end." Although these seniors' realms were much higher than his, Blue Pool didn't feel that he would lose. This was his pride as a genius of the Lan family. Yang Yu seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said loudly, "Let Blue Pool challenge Wang Xian. If he wins, you have to give up your class monitor position and give your 001 student number to him. Do you dare?" Hearing Yang Yu's words, the surrounding spectators couldn't help but reveal an expression of watching a show. No one would have thought that this matter would not only involve the competition between the new students and the old students, it would also involve the scheming within the new students. This was really too interesting. Yang Yu, what nonsense are you talking about? Long Xiao couldn't stand it anymore. Qin Chuan had come to help them resolve the problem out of goodwill. Now, Yang Yu and Blue Pool wanted to join forces against Qin Chuan. This was too much. Long Xiao, are you willing to lower your head to this third-year audit student trash? Yang Yu sneered. I don't believe that as the Long family's legitimate daughter, you'll be willing to lower your head and admit your mistake. Long family's legitimate daughter. Hearing how Yang Yu addressed Long Xiao, everyone couldn't help but look at her with a teasing gaze. They wanted to see how this Long family's legitimate daughter planned to respond to Yang Yu. Faced with Yang Yu's pressure, Long Xiao was furious. As the Long family's legitimate daughter, if she were to say that she was willing to lower her head and admit her mistake, she would definitely become a laughing stock and bring shame to the family. She would also be punished by the elders in the family. However, if she were unwilling to do so, it would mean that she didn't approve of Qin Chuan. It would be equivalent to standing on Yang Yu and Blue Pool's side and making Qin Chuan lose face. She didn't wish to see such a thing happen. Now, she was in a difficult position and didn't know what to do. All right, it's just a small matter. What's there to kick up a fuss about? Qin Chuan, who had been silent all this while, spoke up again. He smiled gently and calmly glanced at Blue Pool, asking, "You want the class monitor position and 001 student number?" Faced with Qin Chuan's question, Blue Pool let out a cold snort and said, "Of course." If Qin Chuan hadn't appeared out of nowhere, Blue Pool, might have been able to become the class monitor and student number 001. Since that's the case, let's fight. Qin Chuan gazed at Blue Pool with an indifferent gaze and said, "There's no need to trouble the seniors. Just the two of us will fight. If I lose, I'll give you everything you want. If I win, you'll lower your head and admit your mistake to the seniors. How about that?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Blue Pool couldn't help but frown slightly. If he were to fight with Wang Xian, he would have some chances of winning. However, if the person he was facing was Qin Chuan, he wasn't so sure. Even though Wang Xian's realm was much higher than Qin Chuan's, in Blue Pool's heart, even if there were two Wang Xians tied together, they might not be a greater threat than Qin Chuan. Faced with Blue Pool's hesitation, Qin Chuan grinned and said, "Since you're hesitant, why don't I give you a hand? There are a total of 9 of us official students. You can pull whoever is willing to help you over. I'm alone." The moment Qin Chuan's words fell, a commotion broke out in the mission hall. No one expected Qin Chuan to want to fight against so many people alone. However, after recalling Qin Chuan's past battle results, everyone felt at ease after their initial shock. After all, regardless of whether it was the battle at the Hidden Dragon Arena or during the admission test, Qin Chuan had always fought against so many people alone and dominated everyone. Now that he was going to fight against so many people alone, it was in line with Qin Chuan's usual style of doing things. "You're too arrogant. I'm no longer the same person I was back then." Blue Pool stared furiously at Qin Chuan and said in a deep voice, "Yang Yu and I will be enough if we join forces." Although Blue Pool was infuriated by Qin Chuan's disdain toward him, he hadn't let anger get to his head. He knew very well that it was very difficult to defeat Qin Chuan by himself. However, if Yang Yu was added to the mix, there wouldn't be a problem. "I've always felt regretful that I didn't dare to make a move against you during the admission test back then. Today, I'll make up for this regret." Yang Yu didn't reject Blue Pool's invitation. He stared coldly at Qin Chuan and said, "I'll let you know the difference between an aristocratic family's genius and a commoner's genius." Chapter 152. The news that Qin Chuan was going to fight 1 against 2 and that he was going to join forces with Blue Pool and Yang Yu quickly spread on the school's intranet. Many freshmen and seniors who heard the news gathered at the school's martial arts field, looking forward to this battle. On the way to the martial arts field, Long Xiao looked at Qin Chuan with a guilty gaze and said, "Sorry, I couldn't support your decision just now. After all, you have a family backing you. I can understand that you have to think about your family's reputation." Qin Xuan smiled and said, "Do you not understand why I want you to bow your heads and apologize to the seniors? Why do you have to do such a shameful thing?" Long Xiao remained silent. In fact, it wasn't just Long Xiao who didn't understand Qin Xuan's decision. The others also didn't understand why Qin Xuan would do such a thing. Faced with everyone's silence, Qin Xuan pursed his lips and said, "I think all of you must have investigated my background and understood me. I was born in the slums and am a child of a poor family. It wasn't easy for me to get to where I am today. Therefore, I understand a principle very well, and that is to not underestimate anyone. In my opinion, the feud between you and Wang Xian is ultimately just a battle of words. You didn't bow your heads and admit your mistakes, saving your face. But what did you lose? You lost the opportunity to complete missions, you lost credits, you lost the possibility of becoming stronger, and you lost time. Do you think that because of this insignificant battle of words, you can't integrate into the seniors group and can't effectively obtain credits and cultivation resources? Is it really worth it? There are only 9 of us official students. If we only rely on the rewards from solo missions and medium missions to strengthen ourselves, isn't it a little too slow? Before the auditing students among the new students grow up and can help us, don't tell me that we can only watch those large-scale missions with rich rewards slip away from our eyes and do nothing about it. Now that we want to participate in large-scale missions, we have to join forces with the older students. You have a grudge with Wang Xian, and Wang Xian represents the older students. Even if he can only represent a portion of the older students, it is enough to make it difficult for you to move forward among the older students. As the children of aristocratic families, even if you don't rely on the school, the progress of your cultivation will not be delayed. But what about the commoners? Hearing Qin Xuan's words, everyone couldn't help but look at Bai Yu. Among the official students, only Qin Xuan and Bai Yu were commoners. Now that they thought about it, Qin Xuan's decision to apologize was probably out of consideration for Bai Yu. But in the end, he's just an auditing student. Some people were still unconvinced and muttered in a low voice. Wang Xian is indeed an auditing student, but when we have a conflict with Wang Xian no longer represents himself, but the entire senior student group. Just now, in a mission hall, there were many seniors, but did you see any seniors willing to step forward to resolve the grudge between us and Wang Xian? No, they were all watching the show, waiting to see us make a fool of ourselves. Our stubbornness and pride that refused to bow our heads were worthless in their eyes. Here, only strength and benefits are the most important. As Qin Xuan's voice fell, no one stood up to refute Qin Xuan, and no one felt unconvinced. They were not children and could understand the meaning behind Qin Xuan's words. They could also understand why Qin Xuan made such a choice. Long Xiao looked at Qin Xuan with a slightly complicated expression and said in a low voice, "Since I was young, others have always addressed me as the Long family's daughter of the first wife. I didn't feel that there was anything wrong with this title. But today, I realized that everything I have today was given to me by the Long family. If I didn't have the Long family to rely on, perhaps I might not have today's achievements. The Long family's daughter of the first wife is their respect for the Long family, not their respect for me. You don't have to belittle yourself." Qin Xuan chuckled and said, "There's no way to control something like birth. As long as you keep working hard, I believe that sooner or later, the Long family will be proud of you. At that time, you won't be the Long family's daughter of the first wife, but Long Xiao." "Thank you." Long Xiao sincerely thanked Qin Xuan. Today's conversation might have a great impact on her future. She was really grateful that Qin Xuan was willing to talk to her about this. After listening to Boss's words, I feel that I'm still too young. If I were to switch places with Boss, who knows where I would be fooling around. Chun Changxing sighed with emotion. I really don't know how Boss relied on himself to walk step by step. Hearing Chun Changxing's words, everyone was curious about Qin Xuan's past. They had the support of their families, received the best education since they were young, and used the best cultivation resources to reach where they were today. But Qin Xuan was alone, relying on his own strength to reach where he was today, standing at a higher place than them. They were really curious about how Qin Chuan did it. Qin Chuan grinned and said, "To sum it up, there are 6 words: bold, careful, and thick-skinned." "Boss, that's 7 words." After chatting and laughing for a while, there were no longer any barriers between them. Their relationship had become much closer than before. When they arrived at the martial arts arena together, the other people who were already there saw Qin Chuan and the others chatting and laughing, and they all felt a little surprised. Earlier in the mission hall, there was clearly a barrier between these official students and Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan appeared to be out of place among the new students and was very stiff. But after such a short while, how come they were suddenly chatting and laughing in harmony? The seniors couldn't understand, and neither could Blue Pool and Yang Yu. Have these people's heads been kicked by a donkey? Yang Yu frowned fiercely. Qin Chuan is a commoner, while we are descendants of aristocratic families. The difference between our statuses is like heaven and earth. I've already reminded them just now. So why are they still willing to walk so close to Qin Chuan? What right did a fellow who had no pride and lowered his head to admit his mistakes have to be mentioned in the same breath as aristocratic family geniuses like them? No matter what methods Qin Chuan used to gain these people's recognition, in the face of absolute strength, it's useless. Blue Pool stared at Qin Chuan with a dark gaze and said in a deep voice, "Just now, Uncle gave me something. With this, even if Qin Chuan is very capable, he'll definitely be defeated by us." Yang Yu's eyes lit up when he heard this. Previously, he was still worried whether the two of them would lose to Qin Chuan if they joined forces. But now that Blue Pool had received his uncle's help, everything was different. Chapter 153. The martial arts arena was a place where students sparred with each other and settled their grudges. There were teachers stationed here, and when they heard that Qin Chuan, Blue Pool, and Yang Yu were going to fight, they took the initiative to find the 3 of them and asked them to sign an agreement. It was fine to determine the victor, but they had to be lenient and stop when necessary. Intentional killing was not allowed. No matter how serious an injury was, the Black Moon Combat Academy's medical standards could heal it in a short period of time. However, if one were to lose their life and die on the spot, they could only be a ghost cultivator for the rest of their lives. After signing the agreement, Qin Chuan, Blue Pool, and Yang Yu went up to the martial arts arena. According to the agreement, both parties were free to use any weapon, and there were no restrictions on their methods. Therefore, Blue Pool straightforwardly took out the weapon he was best at, a broadsword. Yang Yu's weapon was a sword. As for Qin Chuan, he was empty-handed. It wasn't that Qin Chuan didn't want to use a weapon, but that he didn't have one that he was good at. If he casually used a weapon, not only would it not help him, it might even become a burden. Qin Chuan, swords and blades have no eyes. It's not too late for you to admit defeat. Blue Pool looked at Qin Chuan with a cold gaze and said in a deep voice, "As a commoner, you should be prepared to hand over something that doesn't belong to you at any time. I don't feel that I've taken something that doesn't belong to me, nor do I feel that commoners are born to be suppressed by aristocratic families. If you want to win against me, then show me your true abilities. There's no point in talking too much. Since you refuse to repent, then don't blame me for what happens next." Blue Pool roared angrily and charged towards Qin Chuan with his blade. Yang Yu took out a talisman brush and a formation plate and started inscribing a talisman array. Looking at how focused he was, it was obvious that he wasn't inscribing a simple level 1 talisman array. One of them was the main attacker, harassing Qin Chuan, not giving Qin Chuan a chance to inscribe the array glyphs, while the other was inscribing the array glyphs in the rear, preparing for the next step. It could be said to be a very good tactic. If it were someone else facing them, they might be flustered, but Qin Chuan was different. Faced with the charging Blue Pool, Qin Chuan neither dodged nor evaded. Instead, he took the initiative to face him head-on, faint sounds of wind and thunder reverberating from his body. Secret technique, lightning combat technique. Qin Chuan shouted in a low voice. Suddenly, a majestic thunderbolt force emerged from his body and turned into a set of blue armor, enveloping Qin Chuan's body. When they saw this scene, the spectators couldn't help but open their eyes wide and exclaim in surprise. This is spirit transforming armor. This is impossible. Spirit transforming armor is a technique that only Golden Core cultivators know. Just as everyone was discussing fervently, Qin Xuan and Blue Pool collided violently. Although he had the Thunderbolt force protecting him, Qin Xuan didn't arrogantly go head-on against Blue Pool's blade. He dodged Blue Pool's blade at lightning speed and attacked him from the side. The Thunderbolt force surged and turned into a long whip, instantly wrapping around Blue Pool's waist. Violent strength erupted abruptly. At the same time, a white glow suddenly rang out from Blue Pool's chest. Almost in the blink of an eye, Blue Pool's body was enveloped by a set of snow-white combat uniform. Seeing this scene, Qin Xuan couldn't help but frown deeply. Ha ha, Qin Xuan, your Thunderbolt force doesn't seem to be effective against my premium combat uniform. Blue Pool looked at Qin Xuan through his tactical glasses, and his covered face was filled with a smug expression. Even a cultivator at the 13th level of the Qi refinement realm wouldn't be able to break through this superior grade combat uniform. This was why he had the guts to challenge Wang Xian and Qin Xuan. In the spectator stands, Chen Chongqing saw the premium combat uniform Blue Pool was wearing and couldn't help but scold. Isn't this considered cheating? According to the rules of the martial arts arena, all methods are allowed. This isn't considered cheating. Long Xiao looked at Blue Pool on the martial arts arena with a subtle gaze and said, with Blue Pool's status in the Lan family, it's reasonable for him to have such a premium combat uniform. Premium magic weapons were common, but premium combat uniforms were extremely rare. This type of combat uniform was equivalent to a simplified version of battle armor. It was almost invincible in the same realm. Then, isn't Boss in great danger? Chen Chongqing couldn't help but worry about Qin Xuan's situation. With the premium combat uniform on, Qin Xuan couldn't possibly cause any harm to him. This way, Blue Pool was in an invincible position. With Yang Yu assisting from the side, Qin Xuan was almost certain to lose. Not necessarily. Bai Yu looked at Blue Pool with a cold gaze and said calmly, with Blue Pool's strength, it's impossible for him to sustain the premium combat uniform's energy supply for a long time. If Qin Xuan can hold on, the outcome is still unknown. Although the premium combat uniform was called a simplified version of battle armor, it was fundamentally different from battle armor. This was because the energy source of battle armor was the high-energy reactor, while the premium combat uniform's energy source was the user's spiritual force. Blue Pool seemed to be invincible now, but when his spiritual force wasn't enough to continue supplying the premium combat uniform, he would lose without a fight. However, while stalling for time sounded simple, it wasn't easy to execute. One must know that Qin Xuan's opponent wasn't just Blue Pool. There was also Yang Yu. While everyone was talking, Yang Yu had already finished inscribing the talisman array. He raised the array disc high and activated it with his spiritual force. He shouted angrily, "Hurricane Talisman Array appear!" Following Yang Yu's angry roar, a gust of strong wind swept across the calm martial arts arena. In this hurricane, Qin Xuan's balance was seriously affected, and he almost couldn't stand steadily. Most importantly, when the hurricane blew past his body, it was like a sharp knife slashing past, piercing his body and nerves. If Qin Xuan's body hadn't been tempered by the dragon's blood and became extremely tough, he would probably have become a bloody man in this gust of strong wind. The gust of strong wind whistled, blurring the martial arts arena. Everyone couldn't see anything clearly, and even the teacher in charge of the arena frowned. Under such circumstances, it was very difficult for him to determine the outcome of this battle, nor could he stop the danger from happening at the critical moment. Just as everyone was feeling curious or worried, Blue Pool, who was wearing the premium combat uniform, wasn't affected by the hurricane under Yang Yu's deliberate protection. He easily came to Qin Xuan's side. Looking at Qin Xuan struggling in the hurricane, Blue Pool laughed complacently. "Ha ha, aren't you very strong? Aren't you going to fight 1 against 2? Is this all you're capable of?" Qin Xuan struggled to maintain his balance. Looking at Blue Pool, who was laughing complacently, He pursed his lips tightly and didn't give any response. Chapter 154. Qingchuan felt bitter and helpless. He had thought that he had become very strong during this period of time and no longer needed to rely on that suicidal fighting style to win. But now, faced with Blue Pool and Yang Yu's joint attack, he was at his wit's end. The lightning fighting technique was a combat technique that Qingchuan had learned from the thunder-devouring art. It allowed him to convert the spiritual force in his body into the power of lightning and freely control it in battle. It could also be used as a defensive measure to protect himself. If there were no interference, Qingchuan might not be afraid of Blue Pool with a lightning fighting technique. But now, with the hurricane's influence, the advantage of the lightning fighting technique was completely negated. Under such circumstances, Qingchuan had no chance of winning against Blue Pool, who was wearing an exquisite combat uniform. In the end, if he didn't use the fledgling domain, Qingchuan wouldn't be able to turn the tables. It's too dangerous for our aristocratic family to let someone like you live. Blue Pool looked at Qingchuan with a cold gaze and said coldly, "That's why I'm going to kill you. Even if this goes against the rules of the martial arts arena, as long as the elders of the family step in, nothing will happen to me." Hearing Blue Pool's words, Qingchuan couldn't help but widen his eyes, as if in disbelief that Blue Pool was going to kill him. "Why? You seem very surprised." Blue Pool sneered. "Do you think that just because we're classmates, I'll really treat you as a classmate? Stop fooling around. In my eyes, you're just a smelly bug. A smelly bug that can be crushed to death at will without any psychological burden." Rumble. A violent, thunderous roar sounded on the martial arts practice stage. Immediately after, a violent, thunderous force swept out in all directions from the martial arts practice stage, crashing into the protective wall that separated the martial arts practice stage from the audience seats. With a crackling sound, the entire martial arts practice stage faintly trembled. At the same time, the hurricane that had completely enveloped the martial arts stage was suddenly torn apart by the violent lightning energy and disappeared completely in the blink of an eye. On the martial arts stage, there was only the violent lightning energy wreaking havoc. The surging lightning filled everyone's eyes, and it was as if the only thing left in the world was this azure color. In the audience seats, everyone stared in horror at the figure of the young man standing in the middle of the lightning in the center of the arena. They were extremely shocked. Such a terrifying power was enough to take on a foundation establishment cultivator. Sizzle. The lightning gradually dissipated, and everyone could finally see the situation on the arena clearly. The flat arena looked as if it had been swept by a hail of bullets, becoming riddled with holes. Not only that, but there were also two large pits with a diameter of about 3 meters on one side of the arena. Not only that, but there were also two large pits about. There was no need to ask. Everyone could guess that these two charred figures were definitely Blue Pool and Yang Yu. However, they clearly had an absolute advantage. Why did they suddenly lose to Qingchuan? Looking at the young man who stood in the middle of the arena, his body trembling slightly, everyone couldn't help but look at him with reverence. "Won, boss won." Chen Chongqing laughed loudly and shouted excitedly, "Boss won. He won." Bai looked at Qingchuan with joy. As expected, Qingchuan didn't disappoint her and obtained another victory. How did he do it? Long Xiao couldn't figure it out. Under the influence of the hurricane, how did Qingchuan defeat Blue Pool, who had an elite combat uniform to protect himself? Looking at Blue Pool's miserable state, that elite combat uniform was probably completely torn apart by Qingchuan. Many people present had heard of Qingchuan's name and also knew of some of Qingchuan's past achievements. However, hearing about it was one thing, and witnessing it with their own eyes was another. If someone had told them before today that there was someone among the freshmen who could unleash a powerful attack with the full force of an early-stage foundation establishment stage, while at the 8th stage of the Qi refinement stage, and even tear apart the elite combat uniform under the influence of the level 2 Hurricane Talisman Matrix, they would definitely think that this person had drunk too much and was spouting nonsense. One must know that even though they had witnessed this scene with their own eyes, they still didn't dare to believe everything they had seen. Qin Chuan was truly terrifying. Just as everyone was shocked by the outcome of this battle, Qin Chuan suddenly moved. He slowly walked towards the charred figure in the deep pit, his body gradually emitting a heart-palpitating, killing intent. He had won the battle, yet he still wanted to kill. Swoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out, and the resident teacher's figure suddenly appeared before Qin Chuan. He said indifferently, "The battle is over. You've won." Hearing the teacher's words, Qin Chuan slowly raised his head and looked at the teacher's solemn face. His eyes were filled with hideous blood vessels, and his killing intent was so condensed that it seemed to have materialized. Even though the teacher had experienced many big scenes, he was still shocked by Qin Chuan's murderous look. Just as he was about to capture Qin Chuan to prevent further trouble, Qin Chuan fainted and fell to the ground with a plop. A great battle that affected people's hearts had come to an end just like that. When Qin Chuan woke up, it was already noon the next day. By now, his injuries had all healed, but his mental state was still somewhat fatigued. Patter. The healing pod closed, and the door opened. Qin Chuan, who was wearing shorts, slowly walked out of the healing pod. He glanced at his surroundings and knew that he was in Ningya's private cultivation room. "Yo, you're awake?" Ningya, who had appeared in the cultivation room at some point in time, looked at Qin Chuan with a playful gaze. After sizing up Qin Chuan, she clicked her tongue in wonder and said, "I really don't know what material you're made of. It's only been such a short time, but you've already cultivated to the 10th level of the Qi refinement stage. If it wasn't because I was treating your injuries, I wouldn't have realized that your cultivation had progressed so quickly. But then again, you're really ruthless. Not only did you defeat those two guys, you even killed them on the spot. Your fierce reputation has already spread like wildfire in the school." Hearing Ningya's teasing words, Qin Chuan pursed his lips slightly and said in a low voice, "He wants to kill me. He really wants to kill me." "I know." Ningya suddenly sighed. "I understand you. If it wasn't because Blue Pool really wanted to kill you, you might not have retaliated against them so crazily." As Qin Chuan's teacher, although Ningya didn't spend much time with Qin Chuan, she understood Qin Chuan's character very well. She knew that Qin Chuan was very kind in nature and didn't like to make enemies. Otherwise, Qin Chuan wouldn't have spoken so politely to Wang Xian back at the mission hall. Instead, he would have crushed Wang Xian in a domineering manner. And Qin Chuan still wanted to attack after winning. It must be because Blue Pool had thoughts that he shouldn't have. Or perhaps this was the Lan family's intention. Chapter 155. These aristocratic families are used to being high and mighty. Once someone disobeys them, they will feel that their dignity has been challenged and will want to kill to establish their might. I've really had enough of their arrogance and arrogance. Ningya slowly walked up to Qin Chuan and looked at Qin Chuan with her bright eyes. Her expression was unprecedentedly serious. "I once told you that I won't interfere in the competition between peers. If the elders of the Lan family don't make a move on you, I won't do anything. So do you hate me?" Qin Chuan shook his head and answered seriously, "I've never resented Teacher. If Teacher has to bear all the accidents and dangers for me, then what's the point of living? It's good that you can understand my painstaking efforts." Ningya slowly turned around and walked to the cabinet at the side. She picked out a set of fitting training clothes and threw it to Qin Chuan. She signaled for Qin Chuan to put on the clothes and then walked out of the cultivation room. After putting on the clothes, Qin Chuan also left the cultivation room. He looked at Ningya, who was sitting on the sofa and drinking tea lazily. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "Teacher, how are Blue Pool and Yangyu? You want to ask if they're dead, right?" "Don't worry, with the school's medical standards, as long as they're still breathing, they definitely won't die. At this time, they've probably recovered from their injuries and woke up. But you don't have to worry. The Lan family won't find trouble with you because of this. As for the Yang family, a family without any foundation in the Blue Ancient City, it's even more impossible for them to find trouble with you in the school." Speaking of this, Ningya suddenly looked at Qinchuan with a curious gaze and said, I originally thought that you were only very talented in the field of talisman arrays, but I didn't expect your combat strength to be so strong as well. In the past, whether it was the battle on the Hidden Dragon Arena, killing demonic beasts in the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range, or the battle with Long Xiao, Qinchuan had always used talisman arrays to defeat his enemies. However, this time, Qinchuan didn't use the power of talisman arrays in a desperate situation and won with his own strength. It could be said that many people had a new understanding of Qinchuan. The situation back then did not allow me to use the power of the talisman formation. Qinchuan also wanted to use glyphs to fight, but under the circumstances, Qinchuan was completely unable to concentrate on inscribing glyphs and could only rely on his own strength to fight. Do you know what kind of members a perfect team needs? Ningya suddenly asked Qinchuan a very special question. Qinchuan thought about it carefully, then shook his head and answered honestly, I don't know. We cultivators are divided into different types as well. Talisman Formation Masters and Auxiliary Formation Masters are collectively classified as Talisman Formation Masters, and they belong to a comprehensive system that combines combat and support. However, most Talisman Formation Masters nowadays are Auxiliary Formation Masters, so Talisman Formation Masters are generally classified as Auxiliary Formation Masters. Apart from that, there's also an assault system that's good at frontal combat, a command system that's good at formulating battle plans, an intelligence system that's good at collecting and observing the environment, and finally, a logistics system. Simply put, a perfect team needs a Talisman Formation Master, a warrior, a commander, an intelligence officer, and a doctor in charge of logistics. Only a team with these 5 systems can be considered a perfect team. In my personal opinion, you're naturally the most suitable person to take on the responsibility of a talisman array master in a team. As for LVZ, her innate talisman is a rare illusion attribute. It can conceal herself very well and confuse the enemy. She's a pretty good choice as an intelligence agent. As for the assault system, I personally recommend Baiyu. Although this little girl has a cold personality, I can see that her fighting ability is extremely strong and definitely not inferior to yours. Moreover, Suyu Luo has already taken a fancy to her and is preparing to take her as a disciple. With Suyu Luo's guidance, Baiyu's future achievements will definitely not be too bad. She's very suitable to be your companion. As for Chen Chongxing, there's nothing special about him, but it's not bad to be friends with him. Hearing Ningya's long speech, Qinchuan couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He somewhat puzzledly asked, Teacher, why are you telling me this? Kid, you're already a university student and not a child. It's time for you to think about your future. Ningya looked at Qinchuan with a subtle expression and said, Since you had the guts to kill Lanze yesterday, this means that you're not willing to lower your head to an aristocratic family. Furthermore, the Lan family isn't the only aristocratic family in this world. With your personality, you'll offend even more aristocratic families in the future. You can't always plan on fighting alone, right? From now on, you'll start to nurture your own team. This is the path you must take. Ningya looked meaningfully at Qinchuan and said, Although Lu Zi's family background isn't bad, that's because she has a good grandfather. In the end, she's still considered a commoner, and needless to say, Baiyu is also a commoner. You commoner geniuses will be targeted by aristocratic families sooner or later. Therefore, before you grow up, it's very necessary for you to stick together for warmth. Hearing this, Qinchuan bitterly asked, Why can't I avoid the aristocratic families even though I chose the Black Moon Combat Academy? The main reason why Qinchuan had chosen to join the Black Moon Combat Academy was because it was neutral. It wasn't biased toward aristocratic families or commoners. He originally thought that the Black Moon Combat Academy would be a pure land, but he didn't think that it was just his wishful thinking. Kid, don't be silly. This world is so dirty. How can there be a pure land? Ningya sneered and said with disdain, Wherever there are people, there will be conflicts, and there will be factions. In this world, if people aren't born into aristocratic families, then they must be born into a commoner family. From birth, they're already on opposing sides. No matter where you go, you can't change this fate. Then, what if the commoners overthrow the aristocratic families? Qin Chuan suddenly thought of Zhou Ming, Zhou Lin, and the things that the Cosmic Star Academy had been working hard to do. Ningya chuckled and replied with incomparable certainty. That's just the beginning of a new cycle. There's no such thing as absolute fairness in this world. Where there's light, there's bound to be shadows. Whether it's commoners or aristocratic families, they're all insatiable. Hearing Ningya's words, Qin Chuan couldn't help but turn silent. Ningya's view was too thorough, and her words were too straightforward. Seeing Qin Chuan's silent appearance, Ningya gently shook her head. She knew that it would be very difficult for Qin Chuan to accept the cruel truth of this world. However, this was something that Qin Chuan would have to experience sooner or later, and no one could bear it for him. Buzz. At this moment, a buzzing sound suddenly came from outside the window. The entire azure ancient city was shaken. Sensing the vibration, Ningya's expression couldn't help but change slightly. She said in a deep voice, "This is the school's alarm. All teachers and students who hear the alarm must gather at the school's plaza as soon as possible." Qin Chuan was startled. What was going on? Chapter 156. Ningya immediately turned on her optical computer and logged onto the school's intranet. When she saw the latest news on the school's intranet, her expression changed. She said in a deep voice, "A beast tide has broken out in the Black Moon Mountains. The elf city is in a state of emergency." Beast tide? Qin Chuan was extremely surprised. Why would a beast tide suddenly break out? Why? Do they have to inform you before the beast tide breaks out? Ningya quickly got up and said to Qin Chuan, "If you have any questions, tell me on the way. Let's go." Qin Chuan followed behind Ningya and asked in confusion, "Teacher, does this beast tide have anything to do with the demon race?" Generally speaking, every beast tide outbreak is controlled by the demon race behind the scenes. The demon race's most common method is to first use ordinary beast tides to attack our human cities to exhaust the energy of our human cultivators and cause panic among the ordinary people. When the time is right, the demon race will directly open a space tunnel and launch an all-out attack. Qin Chuan had only heard about beast tide outbreaks before, but this was the first time he experienced it personally. Now that he heard Ning Ya's explanation, Qin Chuan roughly understood the process of the beast tide outbreak, but he still had a question in his heart. In the past, has there been a beast tide in the Black Moon Mountains? No, this is the first time. Ningya said to Qin Chuan with a serious expression, "If beast tides break out in the Black Moon Mountains frequently, then I'll be more relaxed. There must be something wrong when things are abnormal. You'd better be careful. The reason for this beast tide outbreak is definitely not simple." Involuntarily, Qin Chuan thought of Azure Dragon Song Hao in the Dragon Spirit Lake. He wondered if this beast tide outbreak had anything to do with the Dragon Spirit Lake. When Qin Chuan and Ningya arrived at the school square, it was already crowded. Seeing Qin Chuan and Ningya's arrival, Su Yuluo walked over with Baiyu and said to Ningya worriedly, "Why did a beast tide suddenly break out?" "I'm not sure." Ningya looked at the crowd and frowned. "Is the Elf City's situation very critical?" "I don't know the details, but the beast tide outbreak was discovered by the Elf City's people. After they notified the Elf City immediately asked us for help. As one of the most famous cities in the Star Dragon Federation, the Elven City naturally had its own garrison, but there weren't many of them. In the face of the ferocious beast tide, the Elven City had no choice but to seek help from the Black Moon Combat Academy, which was the closest to them. At this time, only the Black Moon Combat Academy could lend them a helping hand. Qin Chuan, LVZ, who was dressed in a dark purple combat uniform, walked over and stood beside Qin Chuan. She pursed her lips and said, "I heard about what happened yesterday. I'm sorry that I couldn't help you." Lu Zi had been in seclusion all this time. She had only interrupted her cultivation when the alarm sounded. After hearing about what had happened yesterday, she immediately came to find Qin Chuan. Seeing that Qin Chuan was fine, She sighed in relief. It's fine. Qin Xuan chuckled. You don't have to do anything to deal with them. All right, you guys go to the students. Ningyu said to Qin Xuan. Remember to protect yourself and your companions. Qin Xuan nodded and walked with Lu Zi to the students. Qin Xuan's appearance caused a lively crowd to suddenly quiet down. Everyone, regardless of whether they were seniors or freshmen, looked at Qin Xuan with awe. He's that Qin Xuan? I heard that his full-strength attack already has the strength of an early foundation establishment cultivator. I saw it with my own eyes. He's incomparably powerful. Among the freshmen, no one can compare to him. Just when everyone was whispering, a slender figure walked out of the crowd and slowly came to the front of Qin Xuan. He smiled at Qin Xuan and said, Student Qin Xuan, hello, I'm Han Ting. I'm 1 year older than you. I'm the current vice president of the student union. I want to invite you to join the student union. I wonder if you're interested? When Qin Xuan heard this, he looked at Han Ting in surprise. Student union? Han Ting, 19 years old this year. He's already at the 13th level of the Qi refining stage. It's said that he's preparing to advance to the foundation establishment stage. Lu Zi quietly introduced Han Ting's information to Qin Xuan. Although Han Ting was also at the 13th level of the Qi refining stage, he was different from Wang Xian. One must know that Wang Xian was already 21 years old and had only cultivated to the 13th level of the Qi refining stage not long ago. However, Han Ting had already cultivated to the peak of the 13th level of the Qi refining stage. As long as he had the foundation establishment liquid, he could break through at any time. Logically speaking, you freshmen should only be able to come into contact with the student union in the second semester of university. However, because of your outstanding performance, our student union has decided to recruit you into the student union in advance. What do you think? What are the benefits of joining the student union? Qin Xuan was a very realistic person. He wouldn't do something that didn't benefit him. Hearing this, Han Ting was stunned for a moment. Then, he chuckled and said, Joining the student union doesn't have any special benefits. The student union's establishment isn't to manage other students, but to provide a platform for outstanding students to learn from each other. Moreover, the student union has a branch of the mission hall. You can accept some special missions that won't be displayed in the mission hall. After hearing Han Ting's explanation, Qin Xuan suddenly became interested in the student union. He muttered to himself for a moment, then said to Han Ting, Senior, I can agree to join the student union. However, you won't force me to do anything that I don't want to do, right? You're really vigilant. Han Ting wasn't dissatisfied with Qin Xuan's vigilance. Instead, he admired Qin Xuan's character. He chuckled and said, I've said before that the student union only provides a platform for outstanding students to learn from each other. The atmosphere in the student union is very harmonious, and there aren't any rules or regulations that restrict the members. You can completely rest assured. Thank you, Senior. Qin Xuan sincerely thanked Han Ting. All right, we'll talk about joining the student union in detail after the Beast Tide is over. Han Ting smiled and turned to look at Lu Zi, who was standing beside Qin Xuan, and said, Junior Lu Zi also needs to work hard. Otherwise, Qin Xuan will pull away from you. Lu Zi pursed her lips and said in a serious tone, I will work hard. All right, little brats, don't talk nonsense. Step into the teleportation array now. We're preparing to teleport to the Elf City. A burly man with a full beard suddenly appeared in front of everyone and shouted, Remember to wear your Black Moon badges when you're fighting with the demonic beasts. The Black Moon badges will help you record the battle process of killing the demonic beasts. Killing a ferocious beast will reward you with 1 academic point. Killing a demonic beast will reward you with 10 academic points. Killing a demonic soldier will reward you with 20 academic points. Killing a demonic general will reward you with 1,000 academic points. Killing a demonic commander will reward you with 10,000 academic points. And killing a demonic king. Ha! Don't even think about it. Chapter 157. When everyone heard the bearded man's words, they were a little excited. No one expected that participating in the battle against the beast tide would actually be rewarded with academic credits. Killing demon generals who were equivalent to the Foundation Establishment stage and demon commanders who were equivalent to the Golden Core stage might be very difficult, but killing demon beasts and demon soldiers who were equivalent to the Chi Refinement stage was not a difficult task. For a moment, everyone's thoughts were already on how to kill as many demon beasts and demon soldiers as possible to earn academic credits. Everyone was rather excited. The reward for demon generals is actually 1,000 academic credits, but the demon soldiers are only 20. Qinchuan's eyes flickered slightly, as if he was weighing the pros and cons. Killing demon soldiers and demon beasts was the safest and simplest way, but the competition was also the most intense. As the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. Involuntarily, Qinchuan thought of the time when he provoked the Black City Lord, Chu Hua, for a few cultivation resources. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly and shake his head. Student Qinchuan, I know you have the ability and confidence, but you'd better not have any ideas about demon generals. Han Ting, who was standing beside Qinchuan, said to Qinchuan very seriously, "This is my advice to you. Demon generals are not something that Chi Refinement stage cultivators like us can deal with." As someone who had experienced it, Han Ting understood Qinchuan's mentality too well. Killing demon generals was indeed a huge reward, and at the same time, it would also make one's reputation rise. However, killing demon generals in the Chi Refinement stage was almost impossible. Even if he encountered demon generals, the first thing he would do was to escape and not try to attack. Thank you for your reminder, Senior. Qinchuan took a deep breath and calmed his mentality. The road had to be taken step by step. It wasn't necessarily a good thing to become fat in one go. Buzz! As the teleportation array lit up with a hazy light, everyone suddenly felt a sense of weightlessness. When everyone regained their senses, they had already appeared in the elf city. Everyone walked out of the teleportation hall and stood on the streets of the elf city. Looking at the hurried passers-by on the road, their expressions couldn't help but become solemn. The arrival of the beast tide brought unprecedented pressure to everyone. Beep, beep, beep. An ear-piercing alarm sounded, and soon after, a deep voice rang through the entire elf city through the broadcast system. The beast tide is less than 15 kilometers away from the city of elves. All civilians must head to the shelters immediately to seek refuge. All cultivators must accept the summons and gather at the east gate. Those who disobey will be banished from the city of elves and never allowed to enter again. As soon as the announcement was made, the bearded man who came with Qinchuan and the others immediately shouted, "What are you waiting for? Move out immediately and head to the east gate." Following the bearded man's order, Qinchuan and the others immediately rushed towards the east gate. More than 1,000 people moved together, causing quite a commotion. Soon, the broadcast sounded again. "My compatriots from the Elven City, the powerful teachers and students of the Black Moon Combat Academy have already rushed over to support us. We will definitely defeat the Beast Wave and protect our homeland." The citizens of the Elven City, who were originally terrified, calmed down when they heard the announcement that the teachers and students of the Black Moon Combat Academy had arrived. As citizens of the Elven City, they understood the Black Moon Combat Academy very well and believed that the Black Moon Combat Academy would definitely have a way to defend against the attack of the Beast Wave. When Qinchuan and the others arrived at the Elven City's east gate, the person who welcomed them was the commander of the Elven City's garrison, Qiyong. When Qiyong saw the bearded man, he laughed heartily and hugged him. "Luo Hu, we meet again." Luo Hu hugged Qiyong tightly and asked, "How's the situation?" "It's not too optimistic." When it came to serious matters, Qiyong's expression immediately became serious, and he said in a deep voice, "We only have one regiment of soldiers stationed here, a total of 1,500 people. I've already sent a mobile unit to the front lines to stop the beast wave and relieve the pressure on the Elven City. Now that you're here, it's time for me to go to the front lines." "What? Are you planning to have us defend the city?" Luo, who snorted and said, Since the people of the Black Moon Combat Academy are here, we naturally have to charge to the front lines. Hello, Teacher Luo. I'm Lan Yujo, Mayor Lan's secretary. At this moment, a young man wearing gold-rimmed glasses walked in front of Luo, and smiled at him. Mayor Lan has sent me here to express his gratitude and respect for the support of the Black Moon Combat Academy. Furthermore, every time the teachers and students of the Black Moon Combat Academy earn a point in the battle against the Beast Wave, you can receive a point of spiritual value points from the City Hall. This is a small token from the Elven City to the teachers and students of the Black Moon Combat Academy. I hope you don't mind. Luo, who sized up Lan Yujo and smiled. You people from the Lan family really know how to do things. On behalf of the teachers and students of the Black Moon Combat Academy, I thank you for your kindness. In the crowd, Qin Chuan looked at the smiling Lan Yujo with a subtle expression. He could not help but feel a little serious. He never thought that the mayor of the Elven City would be a member of the Lan family. Let's not talk too much. Let's go. We must block these damned bastards outside the city. Following Luo Hu's order, the 1,000-strong student team and Shiyang's guards immediately moved out of the city. Lan Yujo stood on the city wall and looked at the army that was leaving. He could not help but think of the mayor's instructions before he came here. He's just a student. Is he really worth the family's attention? Rumble, rumble. On the wide and flat grassland between the Elven City and the Black Moon Mountain Range, the Black Beast Wave was like a wave that swept towards the Elven City. Crazy roars rose and fell one after another, continuous and unending. The momentum was extremely vast. Qin Chuan and the rest were still 5 kilometers away from the Beast Wave. However, they could already clearly feel the tremors of the earth and hear the roars of the demon beasts, as well as the roars of the cannons. The garrison's motorized troops had already taken the lead in exchanging blows with the Beast Wave. Cannonballs fell like raindrops into the Beast Wave. Every explosion caused great damage to the Beast Wave, but this was far from enough. The entire Black Moon Mountain Range could be said to have turned out in full force for this Beast Wave. The vanguard consisted of hundreds of thousands of wild beasts, tens of thousands of vicious beasts, and thousands of demon beasts. With a mere 500 motorized troops, even if they were equipped with meteor-rank laser cannons, it would be very difficult for them to interfere with the vanguard. Just as the Beast Wave was less than a kilometer away from the motorized troops, the students of the Black Moon Combat Academy finally arrived on the battlefield. Kill! Luo Hu roared. She raised her 2 giant axes and took the lead in slaughtering the Beast Wave. The others were not willing to fall behind. They all went against the flow and began a crazy massacre. Chapter 158. The beasts at the front of the beast tide were all wild beasts. They did not have any combat strength and were all cannon fodder. The Black Moon Combat Academy's group charged into the beast tide and killed thousands of wild beasts in the blink of an eye. Qin Chuan was originally standing with his companions, but after killing a few wild beasts, they were scattered by the beast tide and began to fight for themselves. Qin Chuan held a standard alloy dagger in his hand and killed a wild beast with a swing of his blade. At this moment, a jet-black wild boar suddenly roared and charged towards Qin Chuan. Seeing this wild boar, Qin Chuan's eyes lit up. This was the first beast he had encountered after killing his way into the beast tide. As long as he could kill this wild boar, he would be able to obtain a few credits and a few spiritual value points. Huh! Qin Chuan roared and exerted strength in his legs. His body shot towards the wild boar like an arrow released from a bow. Just as he arrived in front of the wild boar, the alloy dagger in his hand had already brazenly pierced into the wild boar's eye socket. With a sudden twist, the wild boar's brain was turned into a paste. The wild boar wailed, and its huge body fell to the ground with a plop. Qin Chuan did not even have the interest to look back. With his current strength, a mere wild beast was no longer worthy of his attention. He only had one target today, and that was the demonic beasts. Qin Chuan's figure continued to move against the beast tide. Along the way, he encountered fewer wild beasts and more wild beasts. However, he still did not encounter a single demonic beast. Qin Chuan ruthlessly chopped off the head of a silver wolf and killed another wild beast. At this moment, an angry roar suddenly came from his left. Qin Chuan subconsciously turned his head and saw a silver wolf that was several times larger than the one he had just killed. From the looks of it, it was definitely a demonic beast. This guy can't be your son, right? Qin Chuan grinned. Without waiting for the silver wolf to attack, he took the lead and shot towards the silver wolf. Oh, when the silver wolf saw Qin Chuan rushing towards it, it could not help but let out an angry roar. It exerted strength in its hind legs, and its huge body leapt high into the air, pouncing towards Qin Chuan. Seeing this, Qin Chuan's body tilted, and with a slide kick, he nimbly dodged the silver wolf's pounce. At the same time, he seized the opportunity to grab the silver wolf's hind legs. A powerful force burst out from his hand, and he actually wanted to flip the silver wolf to the ground. Whoosh! A piercing sound came from behind Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan's heart was alarmed, and he subconsciously rolled on the ground. He saw the silver wolf's tail hit the ground like a steel whip. With a bang, the ground cracked. If this hit landed on the back of Qin Chuan's head, his head would have exploded on the spot. Qin Chuan climbed up from the ground and stood firm. Once again, he took the initiative to pounce on the silver wolf. He slid to the silver wolf's lower abdomen and stabbed the silver wolf's abdomen with the alloy dagger in his hand. However, this attack did not have any effect. It only scratched the silver wolf's abdomen a little bit. The silver wolf roared angrily and turned around, wanting to expose Qin Chuan, who was hiding under its abdomen. However, Qin Chuan did not let go of the silver wolf's abdomen hair. The alloy dagger in his hand accurately stabbed the same spot again and again. After a few times, faint traces of blood could be seen oozing out. The silver wolf roared in pain. Its four legs kept stomping on the ground, shaking its body in an attempt to shake Qin Chuan off. However, Qin Chuan seemed to be glued to it and did not move an inch. Poochie! Finally, when Qin Chuan stabbed the same spot on the silver wolf's abdomen for the 14th time, the silver wolf's tough skin was finally broken by Qin Chuan. Hot blood poured out, and Qin Chuan was almost dyed in blood. Qin Chuan did not care about this. He suddenly slashed the alloy dagger and enlarged the wound on the silver wolf's abdomen. Blood and internal organs suddenly fell from the silver wolf's abdomen and dyed the ground red. With its abdomen heavily injured, the silver wolf howled. It staggered 2 steps and finally fell to the ground with a thud. Qin Chuan climbed out from under the silver wolf's body and walked to the silver wolf's head with a smile. He gouged out a silver-white demon core. Looking at this intact demon core, Qin Chuan smiled with satisfaction. Fortunately, this silver wolf still wanted to kill me and did not self-destruct its demon core. Otherwise, I would be in big trouble. Roar! At this moment, a roar suddenly came from behind Qin Chuan. A huge golden lion rushed toward Qin Chuan at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it was already 10 meters away from Qin Chuan. Sensing the danger behind him, Qin Chuan's expression could not help but change slightly. Just as he was about to dodge the attack from behind, a strong aura suddenly exploded beside Qin Chuan. Then, a brilliant white light flashed by. The demon beast that was pouncing toward Qin Chuan fell to the ground before it could even make a sound. At the same time, a white figure slowly landed beside the golden lion's body. He calmly took the demon core and turned to Qin Chuan with a smile. "Junior Qin, hello. I'm your senior in the 3rd year, Zhu Feng." Hearing Zhu Feng's words, Qin Chuan recovered from his shock and asked curiously, "Senior, are you a Foundation establishment cultivator?" "Yes." Zhu Feng chuckled and said, "Killing demon beasts is more important. We'll talk later. Goodbye." With that, Zhu Feng's figure turned and floated into the distance. Looking at Zhu Feng's departing figure, Qin Chuan could not help but feel envious. This was a Foundation establishment cultivator who could kill demon beasts in an instant. "Looks like I have to work harder." Qin Chuan clenched his fists and suddenly rushed toward a demon beast in front of him. Once again, a fierce battle broke out. It had been more than half a day since the outbreak of the demon beast tide. The sun was setting in the west, and the sky was dyed with a layer of dim gold. On the plains between the Elf City and the Black Moon Mountain Range, the ground was dyed red. A strong smell of blood floated in the air, making people feel nauseous. The battle was still going on. The battle between the human race and the demon race was still not over. Everyone's eyes were red from killing, as if they had become tireless killing machines. When a sharp howl came from the back of the demon beast tide, the demon beast tide that was crazily attacking seemed to calm down in an instant and began to retreat in an orderly manner. Soon, the demon beasts and demon beasts retreated from the battlefield. Only some wild beasts that were used as cannon fodder remained here and continued to kill, causing trouble for the human race. Qin Chuan fiercely nailed a huge sparrow to the ground with his saber. The sparrow only flapped its wings twice and died. Qin Chuan let go of his hand and sat on the ground with a plop. He panted heavily and was exhausted to the extreme. This battle, which had been going on since noon, was finally over. Chapter 159. After a hearty battle, all the survivors were lying on the ground, exhausted. Their bodies were as soft as a pile of mud, allowing the medical team to treat them. 3 medics came to Qin Chuan's side, ready to check on Qin Chuan's body. Qin Chuan waved his hand and said weakly, "Please leave me a bottle of water and a nutrient solution. I'm not injured, just a little tired. You can go and save the others." The medics did not say anything. They left Qin Chuan a bottle of water and a nutrient solution and left. Time was precious. They had to save every wounded person as soon as possible. Qin Chuan struggled to sit up from the ground. He unscrewed the bottle cap and drank half of the water in one breath. He then took a long breath, as if his whole body had come back to life. He picked up the nutrient solution, opened it, and took a big bite. The tasteless nutrient solution instantly melted in Qin Chuan's mouth, turning into a warm current that flowed through Qin Chuan's limbs and bones, quickly restoring Qin Chuan's physical strength. After swallowing the entire nutrient solution, Qin Chuan felt a lot better. After letting out a satisfied breath, Qin Chuan lay down again. This time, he lay down for more than half an hour before he stood up again and began to walk in the direction of the main group. Luo Hu, who was counting the number of people, saw Qin Chuan covered in blood. He carefully identified Qin Chuan and patted Qin Chuan's shoulder heavily. He laughed and said, "I noticed you just now. You performed very well. As a teacher, in the battle just now, in addition to beheading the powerful demon beasts, Luo Hu also tried his best to save every student who was in danger. He had met Qin Chuan before, and he had seen Qin Chuan's performance. He was very brave and quick-witted. It could be said that he performed the best among the many new students." Qin Chuan grinned and said, "Teacher, be gentle. Don't make me fall apart." Qin Chuan felt that his body, which had recovered with great difficulty, was about to lie down again after being patted by Luo Hu. "Quickly go and rest." Luo Hu patted Qin Chuan's shoulder lightly this time and said, "Work hard, young man." Qin Chuan returned to the camp. His eyes swept through the crowd and soon saw Bai Yu and Chen Chongqing. However, he did not see Lu Zi. This made Qin Chuan have a bad premonition. He walked to Bai Yu and Chen Chongqing's side and asked, "Did you see Lu Zi, boss?" Chen Chongqing looked at Qin Chuan with extremely tired eyes and said, "Lu Zi seems to be injured. She was taken back to the city by the medics to heal." Hearing that Lu Zi was only injured, Qin Chuan's mood relaxed a lot. He let out a long sigh of relief, then sat down on the ground and asked, "Are we going to camp here next?" It is said that the Elf City's mobile fortress is already on the way. We can enter the mobile fortress to rest soon. As Chen Chongqing's voice fell, a roar came from the sky in the distance. A huge steel behemoth parted the clouds and slowly appeared in front of everyone. Looking at the steel behemoth flying in the air, which was 1,000 meters long and dozens of meters tall, Qin Chuan could not help but stare. This was the mobile fortress. This was the only mobile fortress in the elf city. It was called the Elf. The Elf was 2,100 meters long, 1,400 meters wide, and 32 meters tall. It was trapezoidal in shape. The top of the fortress was equipped with 14 Meteor-class cannons, 28 Comet-class laser cannons, 1 Meteor-class annihilation cannon, and countless other small weapons. As long as this mobile fortress was not broken by the beast tide, the elf city could be said to be invulnerable. The reason why they did not use the mobile fortress at the beginning was because the procedures to activate the mobile fortress were too complicated. They needed to apply layer by layer and wait for approval. The second reason was that the beast tide came too quickly. They had to stop it as soon as possible. With the speed of the mobile fortress, the beast tide would have reached the city before it could even fly out of the city. Because it was the first time the elf city encountered a beast tide, and the number of beasts in the vanguard was extremely large, the elf city's application to use the mobile fortress was quickly approved. It was also because of this that the elf city could arrive at the battlefield in the evening. This is the mobile fortress? Qin Chuan looked at the huge steel behemoth in the sky in shock. He was completely stunned. It was the first time he saw a mobile fortress with his own eyes. It was simply too exaggerated. Everything about the mobile fortress is good. It's just that it's too slow. Chun Changxing grinned and said, otherwise, the hundreds of thousands of beasts would definitely not be able to escape under the bombardment of this mobile fortress. Buzz. Just as everyone was discussing the appearance of the mobile fortress slowly began to descend and landed on the ground with a loud rumble. After landing, the door of the mobile fortress slowly opened. Dozens of fully armed soldiers stood at the door and said to everyone, "Everyone, please line up for inspection and enter the elf one by one." As a war tool that was almost impossible to be broken by the enemy from the outside, the internal defense measures could be said to be extremely strict. Everyone who entered and exited the mobile fortress had to undergo strict inspection to prevent people with bad intentions from sneaking in. Everyone was well aware of this, so no one felt that there was anything wrong with this. After about an hour of inspection, thousands of people finally entered the elf. Qin Chuan and the others were brought to the cleaning area. First, they were cleaned of the dirt on their bodies. After changing into a new set of clothes, they underwent a new round of inspection. After that, they finally gained initial trust and could move freely in the resting area arranged for them. However, they were not allowed to leave the resting area. Otherwise, they would be treated as spies and arrested. Lying on the soft and comfortable bed, Qin Chuan did not want to think about anything. He just wanted to have a good sleep. Qin Chuan, don't you want to see how many ferocious beasts and demonic beasts you have killed on the school's intranet and where you rank? Chun Changxing lay on the bed next to Qin Chuan and looked at Qin Chuan with excitement. No, Qin Chuan refused almost without thinking. It was the same whether he looked at it sooner or later. He just wanted to have a good rest now. I have already looked at it for you. Among the students in the school, you are ranked 37th. Among the freshmen, you are ranked 3rd. Chun Changxing looked at Qin Chuan mysteriously and asked, don't you want to know who the two people in front of you are among the freshmen? However, this time, Chun Changxing did not get a response from Qin Chuan because Qin Chuan was already asleep. Chapter 160. When Qin Chuan woke up, it was already late at night. At this time, Chun Changxing was sitting on the bed and fiddling with his optical computer. When he saw Qin Chuan wake up, he immediately said to Qin Chuan, "You're awake? Do you want to go eat something?" "You don't say. I'm a little hungry." From the time he gathered at the school until now, Qin Chuan only drank a bottle of water and took a nutrient supplement. Now that he woke up, he was starving. It was time to eat something to replenish his energy. On the way to the dining hall, Qin Chuan finally opened his optical computer and began to check the school's intranet. He first checked his ranking. He was ranked 37th in the school, 3rd among the freshmen, and had killed a total of 14 Yao beasts and 80 vicious beasts. Wild beasts were not included. 14 Yao beasts is 140 credits, and 80 vicious beasts is 80 credits. If that's the case, I've earned 220 credits from this battle. That's not a small amount. Qin Chuan muttered in a low voice and opened the ranking list. Let me tell you, you'll definitely be shocked when you see the freshman's ranking list. I can understand that the first place is that abnormal by you, but the second place is actually Lu Zi. Can you believe this? Chen Chongqing said to Qin Chuan with a face full of excitement. I really didn't expect Lu Zi to be so savage. Qin Chuan was also stunned by Lu Zi's performance. Lu Zi had actually killed 20 Yao beasts and 60 vicious beasts, earning 260 vicious beasts in one battle. As for the first place by Yu, she had killed 23 Yao beasts and 108 vicious beasts, earning 338 vicious beasts. That was almost twice as much as Qin Chuan. These two women must be crazy. Qin Chuan sucked in a breath of cold air. He thought he was crazy enough, but he didn't expect these two women to be even crazier than him. It's not like the two of them didn't pay a price. Lu Zi is seriously injured and can only report to the mobile fortress tomorrow night. Bai Yu is also seriously injured and needs to rest for a night. You're unscathed, just a little tired. Chen Chongqing said somewhat helplessly. Unlike me, who only obtained 160 credits. Compared to you guys, it's far from enough. Qin Chuan didn't pay attention to Chen Chongqing. Instead, he focused his attention on the complete list. Lu Zi and Bai Yu were ranked 35th and 30th in the entire school, respectively. The students ranked 24 and above were all foundation establishment experts without exception, and Zhu Feng, who had helped Qin Chuan today, was ranked first on the list. In the battle during the day, Zhu Feng had killed a total of 126 demonic beasts and 1,300 vicious beasts, as expected of a foundation establishment stage cultivator. Qin Chuan's eyes burned as he looked at the 24 foundation establishment stage cultivators' names on the list. He couldn't wait to advance to the foundation establishment stage and become one of them. We still have a long way to go before we reach the foundation establishment stage. It's said that the school will also provide foundation establishment liquid for us to exchange for, but even the most average quality foundation establishment liquid requires at least 30,000 credits. Chen Chongqing patted Qin Chuan's shoulder and said, My family has already prepared a good quality foundation establishment liquid for me. Once my cultivation improves and stabilizes, I can begin to break through. Boss, you have to work harder to earn credits. Qin Chuan was speechless and rolled his eyes at Chen Chongqing. Was this guy showing off to him? He was someone who had once obtained a perfect quality foundation establishment elixir. All right. When the two of them arrived at the dining hall, there were already many people eating there. It seemed like they had all just woken up. Qin Chuan and Chen Chongqing's arrival had attracted a lot of attention. To be more accurate, it was Qin Chuan who had attracted a lot of attention. After the list had been made public, almost all of the Black Moon Combat Academy students had seen it. Qin Chuan, Lu Zi, and Bai Yu, as freshmen, had surpassed many seniors and were ranked in the top 37. This was an extremely shocking result, especially since Qin Chuan, who was currently in the limelight, was actually ranked behind Lu Zi and Bai Yu. This was even more inconceivable. The unknown Lu Zi and Bai Yu were actually stronger than Qin Chuan, who was always in the news. This year's freshmen were just too abnormal. Qin Chuan, sit here. When Han Ting, who was eating, saw Qin Chuan enter, he immediately called for Qin Chuan to sit down. Qin Chuan and Chen Chongqing carried the food to Han Ting's table and sat down. The three of them ate together. Han Ting looked at Qin Chuan, who was sitting in front of him, and gave him a thumbs up. Each generation is truly stronger than the previous. As a second-year senior, I'm at a higher realm than you, but I'm barely ranked 32nd. You're only 5 places behind me, and that by use ranking is even higher than mine. I have to say, this year's freshmen are truly powerful. Senior is too kind. Qin Chuan smiled and said, If it wasn't for Senior Zhu Feng helping me at the most crucial moment, I might have been injured a long time ago. Don't even talk about continuing to fight. Being able to keep my life would already be good enough. Qin Chuan was telling the truth. If it wasn't for Zhu Feng helping him kill the demonic beast that wanted to sneak attack him at the most crucial moment, perhaps he would be receiving treatment in the Elf City now. Hee hee, Look at what you're saying. It's like none of us have been helped by Brother Feng. Han Ting laughed and said, "You still don't know, right? Brother Feng is the president of our student union. He's only 22 years old now, but he's already at the late stage of foundation establishment." Hearing Han Ting's words, Qinchuan's expression couldn't help but become surprised. He originally thought that Zhu Feng was only at the early stage of foundation establishment, but he didn't expect that Zhu Feng was already a powerhouse at the late stage of foundation establishment, and he was also the president of a student union. But unfortunately, Brother Feng will enter the 4th year in half a year and won't stay in the school anymore. Among us who are about to enter the 3rd year, the strongest is only at the early stage of foundation establishment. Han Ting sighed with some regret and said, "At that time, I estimate that I'll only be at the early stage of foundation establishment. The overall strength of our student union will probably drop a lot." Isn't this very normal? Qinchuan was a little puzzled. It was very normal for seniors to graduate, and it was also normal for the student union strength to drop because of this. However, looking at Han Ting's expression, it seemed that things weren't as simple as he thought. The strength of the student union is related to the ranking of the 6 great schools. Han Ting glanced at Qinchuan and said, "You're probably focused on cultivation and don't care about this. The 6 great schools update the ranking every 3 years, and this ranking is determined by the strength of the student union of the 6 great schools. When Brother Feng enters the 4th year, the strongest strength of our student union will probably only be at the middle stage of foundation establishment. I'm afraid that we'll be much weaker than the other schools. At that time, the ranking will drop, and the cultivation resources allocated to us by the Federation's Ministry of Education will correspondingly decrease. At that time, the ones who will be directly affected will naturally be us, the current students. The next ranking update will be in half a year. Now do you understand why I'm sighing?" Chapter 161. After hearing Han Ting's explanation, Qinchuan realized that the strength of a student council was actually linked to the allocation of cultivation resources from the Ministry of Education. Moreover, besides the internal competition between the 6 great academies, there are also the 10 great academies eyeing us covetously. Han Ting sighed and said, "The 10 great academies have the power to challenge the 6 great academies. If they win, they can replace us and become the new 6 great academies. If our Black Moon Combat Academy's student council performs poorly in the ranking competition, we might be targeted by the 10 great academies. At that time, we might be able to deal with 1 or 2 challenges, but if we have to fight 10 battles in a row, we might not be able to last until the end." Qinchuan could not help but frown when he heard this and asked, "How strong are the student councils of the other 5 great academies?" From what Qinchuan knew, the Black Moon Combat Academy was ranked 5th among the 6 great academies, and the Cosmic Sky Academy was ranked 6th. Originally, we had the Cosmic Sky Academy below us, but today is different. The Cosmic Sky Academy Zhou Lin came out of nowhere and displayed an extremely strong strength and talent, winning the title of Queen of Blades. In the ranking competition half a year from now, Zhou Lin will definitely represent the Cosmic Sky Academy. To be honest, there might not be anyone in our batch who is Zhou Lin's opponent. When Zhou Lin was mentioned, Han Ting looked at Qinchuan with a subtle expression. Everyone knew that Qinchuan and Zhou Lin had a very good relationship. Qinchuan was stunned for a moment. He did not think that Han Ting would mention Zhou Lin at this time. But after thinking about it carefully, it was normal for Zhou Lin to participate in the ranking competition half a year from now. After all, Zhou Lin's strength was there for all to see. "Junior, you're the most outstanding student in our Black Moon Combat Academy. This Beast Tide is an excellent opportunity for you. As long as you can accumulate enough credits from this Beast Tide, you'll be able to exchange for a foundation establishment elixir from the academy and begin to break through to the foundation establishment stage." Han Ting looked at Qinchuan with an expectant gaze and said, "I forgot to tell you that the ranking competition half a year from now is not only a competition between the 6 great academy student councils, but also a competition between the new students. You have to work hard. I will. Qingchuan nodded seriously. He had to participate in the ranking competition half a year from now. Perhaps he could meet that person from the Qin family in that competition. Early the next morning, before the sky brightened, a fierce alarm sounded in the Elvish. Qingchuan, who was sleeping on the bed, immediately jumped out of bed when he heard the alarm. At the same time, Lele's figure appeared on the black moon badge beside his pillow. Student, Lele's voice, and Lele's, Lele. Hearing Lele's notification, Qingchuan asked in surprise as he put on his clothes. 15 minutes? Of Lele's. After Qingchuan finished putting on his clothes and checked his belongings, he said to Chun Chongxing, who was still putting on his clothes, "I'll go first." Qingchuan walked out of the room and followed the flow of people to the top of the Elven. He stood on top of the huge moving castle. From here, he could see the plains in front of him. There, a black line was spreading at an extremely fast speed with an astonishing momentum. The beast tide this time is more violent than yesterday's. Qingchuan pursed his lips and looked at the beast tide in the distance with a solemn expression. Yesterday's beast tide was mostly wild beasts, but today's beast tide was almost all dire beasts. There were hundreds of thousands of them, but in terms of overall quality, the difference was like heaven and earth. Everyone, listen to my orders. After 3 rounds of bombardment from the Elven, attack. As Commander Chiong's voice fell, all Comet-class laser cannons and battleship cannons on the Elven entered a state of readiness. They were fully charged and ready to attack at any time. Ready. Fire. Chi-Yong roared, and the Comet-class laser cannon on the Elven suddenly lit up with a white light. This light gradually condensed into a sphere about 2 meters in diameter, emitting a heart-palpitating power. Rumble. The laser cannons and battleship cannons fired at the same time and reached the beast tide in the blink of an eye. They exploded, and the terrifying power melted hundreds and thousands of dire beasts in an instant. Just 1 round of bombardment, and tens of thousands of dire beasts were killed. Qingchuan stared at the shocking scene in front of him, and his heart trembled. This was the power of battleship cannons and laser cannons, and these were only Comet-class cannons. If they were Comet-class cannons, or even planetary-class cannons, how terrifying would their power be? Second round. Ready. Fire. Faced with the bombardment of the cannons, the charging pace of the demonic beast horde was inevitably affected. Their speed gradually slowed down. After 3 rounds of bombardment, even the most ferocious demonic beasts were somewhat cowering, not daring to move forward. On the Elven, Chi-Yong saw the hesitation and weakness of the beast tide army and immediately seized the opportunity to roar, "All soldiers attack!" Hearing Chi-Yong's order, all the garrison soldiers and students of the Black Moon Combat Academy rushed off the Elven through the battle platform and rushed towards the beast tide. Their battle cries shook the sky. This battle lasted from morning until 4 p.m. in the afternoon. In this battle, everyone had killed more than 50,000 dire beasts and close to 10,000 dire beasts. It was a complete victory. However, when the casualties were counted, everyone's spirits were not high. This was because they had lost over 100 outstanding garrison soldiers and 28 students of the Black Moon Combat Academy had died. And this was only the second wave of the beast tide. Where are the reinforcements? It's been 2 days. Why haven't the reinforcements arrived? In the Elven command room, Chi-Yong angrily questioned Lan Yuzhou. Does your mayor only know how to stay in the city and comfort the citizens? Does he not know how to complain to his superiors? Faced with Chi-Yong's anger, Lan Yuzhou helplessly replied, "Captain Qi, please believe in the mayor. He must be more anxious than anyone else. The mayor has sent out 10 requests for reinforcements in the past 2 days, but he hasn't received a clear answer. The 29th Corps, which is closest to us, has refused to send troops because they are wary of the dire beasts. We can't do anything about it. What a bunch of bastards." Chi-Yong was furious. Do these people want to see the Elven city be massacred by the dire beasts? Chapter 162. Although they had won a great victory, because of the sacrifice of their companions, everyone's mood was not high. They were even a little depressed. In my lifetime, I will definitely kill all the demon clan. The sorrowful and indignant students gritted their teeth and clenched their fists. They let out angry roars that resonated with the people around them. They could not let their companions' sacrifice be in vain. They must kill all the demon beasts and avenge their companions. Qin Chuan looked at the alumni who had made the oath with a complicated expression. If these people knew that the 8,000-year war between the Demon Clan and the Demon Clan was caused by the betrayal of the humans, would they still be as angry as they were now and think that the Demon Clan deserved to die? Would those high and mighty big shots who knew the whole truth find it funny and disdainful when they saw the grief and pain of these small fry? Qin Chuan did not know what the answer was, but he knew that one day he would find the answer. Just as Qin Chuan was about to return to the resting area, two figures in military uniforms appeared in front of Qin Chuan and blocked his path. Student Qin Chuan, we have some things that we need you to cooperate with the investigation. Please come with us. The noisy crowd quieted down because of this incident. Everyone looked at Qin Chuan in surprise. What happened? Qin Chuan looked at the shackles in their hands and asked, "Are you going to interrogate a spy?" "Of course not." The other party replied, "Student Qin Chuan, you performed very bravely in the battle against the Demon Clan. We do not think that you are a spy of the Demon Clan. We just have some questions to ask you." "I understand." Qin Chuan nodded, then pointed at the shackles in the other party's hands and said, "Then please put this thing away. I feel uncomfortable looking at it." The person was stunned for a moment, then silently put away the shackles and said to Qin Chuan, "Come with us." Qin Chuan nodded and glanced at Chen Changxing, who was standing beside him. He pursed his lips and said, "I'm fine. I'll be back soon." Qin Chuan followed behind the two soldiers and walked in the silver-white corridor. He looked around curiously. This was the first time he had stepped into a place other than the resting area of the mobile fortress. "Who wants to see me?" Qin Chuan was a little curious. Who would suddenly look for him at this time? "You'll know when we get there." The soldier did not want to answer Qin Chuan's question. He reached out and tugged at his collar, his face showing some discomfort. When they reached the end of the corridor, the two soldiers stopped in front of a room. They turned to Qin Chuan and said, "Open the door and go in yourself." Qin Chuan nodded and calmly walked to the door. When he stood in front of the door slowly opened, revealing the passageway inside. Qin Chuan stepped into the room and looked around. This should be a meeting room. Other than a long table and a few chairs in the middle of the room, there were no extra furnishings. Just as Qin Chuan was looking around the room, the figure of a man suddenly appeared at the end of the long table in front of him. His face had been specially treated, so Qin Chuan could not see his real face. A projection? Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said, "It seems that I guessed right. The person who wants to see me is not from the garrison." "Why do you say that?" The man's voice was a little hoarse and low, as if it had been specially treated and did not want Qin Chuan to recognize it. "Because the people you sent to capture me are not real soldiers." Qin Chuan smiled and said, "Their uniforms do not fit well. They should be uncomfortable wearing them." The man was silent for a moment. Then he clapped his hands and said to Qin Chuan, "You are very smart and observant. In that case, can you guess why I want to see you? If it's because of my talent and you want to recruit me, you don't have to go through so much trouble." Qin Chuan looked at the man's figure with a subtle expression and said in a low voice, "I remember that my teacher once told me that she would help me block those with bad intentions. Now it seems that she went back on her words. You mentioned your teacher in front of me to test my reaction and, at the same time, to warn me not to mess around, right?" The man chuckled. "I have to say, your performance has exceeded my expectations. You are really an excellent young man. Can I sit down?" Qin Chuan asked, but his body had already sat down in front of the long table. He crossed his arms on the table and looked calmly at the man sitting opposite him. "For the sake of my life, I will do my best to cooperate with you. So please do not waste any more time. If you have anything to ask, just ask. Straightforward, straightforward. I like your character." The man smiled again. What I want to know is very simple. I want to know everything that you have experienced in the Cursed Lands. I want to know in detail everything that has happened to you, without leaving out anything. I knew it. Qin Chuan looked at the man in front of him meaningfully. Aside from the Cursed Lands, you people would not have come looking for me for anything else. Qin Chuan had originally thought that no one had come looking for trouble with him during this period of time, and that the matter would be over. He never thought that someone would suddenly launch a surprise attack on him at such a time. Come to think of it, the reason why the other party had launched their attack at this time was probably because of the beast wave. Ningya had something important to do and was unable to look after him. That was why the other party had found an opportunity to attack him. The Cursed Lands have existed for thousands of years, and no one has ever been able to leave alive after entering the Cursed Lands. It would not be an exaggeration to say that you are the first. The man looked at Qin Chuan curiously and said, I've carefully investigated your background and identity. There's nothing special about you. However, it's because of this that I'm even more curious about you. I desperately want to know everything that had happened in the Cursed Lands. May I ask, did you only capture me alone? Qin Chuan was curious. There were a total of 4 people who had made it out of the Cursed Lands. Only you, because you're the most important one. Without you, they wouldn't have been able to leave the Cursed Land alive, right? All right, I'll believe you for now. What if I told you that the reason why I was able to lead them out of the Cursed Lands was because I had found a broken teleportation formation in the Cursed Lands? I then repaired the teleportation formation and left the Cursed Lands. Would you believe me? Are you kidding me? You were only at the first level of the Qi refining stage at the time, and were only a level 1 formation master. Do you think that I would believe that you had the ability to repair a teleportation formation? The man laughed icily, clearly not believing Qin Chuan's words. Chapter 163. Qin Chuan spread out his hands and said, I'm telling the truth. At that time, we did leave the Cursed Lands through the teleportation array. You saw it too. We teleported directly to the school, didn't we? When the man heard Qin Chuan's explanation, he couldn't help but fall silent. Qin Chuan wasn't lying. At that time, the 4 of them had teleported to the school. However, how could there be a teleportation array in the Cursed Lands? Furthermore, it was connected to the school's teleportation array. To be honest, that was the first time I entered the Black Moon Mountain Range. It was also the first time I entered the Cursed Lands. It was also the first time I saw a teleportation array in the Cursed Lands. Therefore, this is all I know. Things aren't as complicated as you think. Qin Chuan faced the man in front of him and said frankly, At that time, we encountered an extremely terrifying stitched monster in the Cursed Lands. The 4 of us used all our strength to kill that monster. After killing that monster, its body dropped a large number of spiritual pearls. If it weren't for those spiritual pearls, I might have been persuaded to leave the school by you. So your spiritual pearls are... At this point, the man suddenly stopped speaking. He slowly raised his eyes and looked at Qin Chuan with an incomparably cold gaze, filled with killing intent. Faced with the man's shocking killing intent, Qin Chuan grinned and said indifferently, It really is you, Teacher Zhao Kuei. Are you here to interrogate me on behalf of the school's higher-ups, or are you here to represent the Lan family? After his identity was exposed, Zhao Kuei no longer disguised himself. He revealed his original appearance and looked at Qin Chuan with a slightly gloomy gaze and asked, How did you know it was me? I don't know either. However, I guess that no matter who wants to know my secret, they wouldn't show themselves. They would probably find an obedient puppet to control me from behind the scenes. Therefore, I naturally thought of you, Teacher Zhao. Qin Chuan smiled. I didn't expect you to take the bait so easily, Teacher Zhao. Are you mocking me? Zhao Kuei stared coldly at Qin Chuan and said in a deep voice, Aren't you afraid that I will kill you in a fit of anger? Of course I'm scared, but do you think I'd risk my life to test you when I don't have any means to fight back? Qin Chuan looked at Zhao Kuei with a playful gaze. Mr. Zhao, to be honest, you're still too inexperienced. Sizzle. The moment Qin Chuan's voice fell, Zhao Kuei's projection suddenly flickered. After a few seconds, Zhao Kuei's projection completely disappeared from Qin Chuan's sight. Seeing this, Qin Chuan shrugged with an innocent expression. Buzz. The door of the meeting room opened slowly. Ningya, who was dressed in a black cheongsam, walked in slowly. She glanced at Qin Chuan, who was sleeping soundly on the long table, and could not help but smile. You stinking brat. I'm wiping your ass over there, but you're sleeping so soundly. Mr. Zhao, you promised me that you would help me block these guys, but now I almost died because of you. Aren't you afraid of going back on your words and becoming as fat as a pig? Qin Chuan sat up on the long table and was hit on the head. He held his head and looked helplessly at the angry Ningya. I hate it when people say that I'm fat. Ningya snorted and said, Fortunately, you hinted to Chun Chongqing to contact me, and I happened to be carrying out a mission on the outskirts of the mountain range not far away. Otherwise, you might have really died this time. However, when I found Zhao Kuei, he committed suicide. Hearing the news of Zhao Kuei's death, Qin Chuan was slightly stunned, but then he chuckled and said indifferently, He's really an obedient puppet. In order to protect the people behind him, he committed suicide without hesitation. Amazing, really amazing. Who do you think is the person behind Zhao Kuei's death? Ningya looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle gaze. She admired Qin Chuan's maturity and calmness. After thinking about it, I think that the person who would be interested in the Cursed Land must be someone with a certain status in Azure Ancient City. From the last time Zhao Kuei stood up for Lan Zhe, I can tell that Zhao Kuei should have a close relationship with the Lan family. On the other hand, I have some enmity with the Lan family. If the Lan family was behind Zhao Kuei's kidnapping and interrogation, it would be reasonable. Now that Zhao Kuei committed suicide to escape punishment, it's confirmed that the Lan family is the mastermind behind this. Moreover, I'm guessing that the two disguised soldiers who escorted me are also related to the Lan family. After hearing Qin Chuan's analysis, Ningya couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan in astonishment. She nodded slightly and said, You're right. The two disguised soldiers are indeed peripheral members of the Lan family. They entered the elf together with Zhao Kuei. I originally suspected that the Lan family was behind this, but after hearing your analysis, I feel that the Lan family has been wronged. No, regardless of whether the Lan family has been wronged or not, this matter was done by the Lan family. The corners of Qin Chuan's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a strange smile. He asked Ningya, Teacher, I really want to know how much deterrence you have against those big shots. Ningya was slightly stunned when she heard this. Then she asked, What do you want to do? Bang. A violent sound rang out, and the restaurant's door fell to the ground with a loud bang. Everyone who was eating in the restaurant widened their eyes when they saw this scene. What's going on? Could it be that a demonic beast had come knocking on their door? Blue Pool, get out here right now. The furious Qin Chuan strode into the restaurant. His gaze swept across the crowd and accurately locked on a Blue Pool, who was in a state of shock. A savage look suddenly appeared on his face, and with a single thought, he started to inscribe a talisman array in the air. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but turn pale. Was this guy crazy? Qin Chuan, what are you trying to do? Seeing that Qin Chuan was about to make a move on Blue Pool by inscribing a talisman array, Han Ting hurriedly stood out to stop Qin Chuan. He said loudly, This is the elf ship. It's illegal to make a move here. Illegal? I'll get rid of this bastard Blue Pool first. However, Qin Chuan ignored him and brazenly activated the Thunder Manipulation Talisman Array. The violent power of lightning gathered in the air above the restaurant, turning into an azure lightning dragon. Releasing astonishing energy waves, it roared and charged towards Blue Pool, who was in the crowd. Seeing that Qin Chuan really disregarded the elf ship's rules and brazenly made a move, everyone scurried away in a panic, distancing themselves from Blue Pool, whom Qin Chuan had locked onto. Blue Pool finally came back to his senses. With a furious bellow, he activated a golden array disc at an extremely fast speed, releasing a semicircular defensive talisman array. Qin Chuan, you're crazy. You want to kill me? Bluepool felt that Qin Chuan must have gone crazy. To think that he wanted to kill him in public. If your Lan family hadn't been so overbearing and wanted to kill me, why would I kill you? Qin Chuan bellowed furiously. Ignoring everything else, he unleashed the Thunder Manipulation Talisman Array's power to the maximum. The lightning dragon roared and attacked Bluepool's defensive talisman array crazily, looking like it wouldn't stop until he killed Bluepool. Chapter 164. Just as Qin Chuan was about to break through Bluepool's defense talisman array, a figure in fluttering white clothes suddenly appeared in the sky above the dining hall. With a powerful force, he cut off the connection between the lightning manipulation talisman array and the lightning dragon. With a wave of his hand, he shattered the violent lightning dragon. Qin Chuan calmed down. Zhu Feng gradually landed in front of Qin Chuan and said in a deep voice with a frown, "No matter what grievances you've suffered, the school will naturally stand up for you." Seeing that it was Zhu Feng, Qin Chuan stopped attacking and scolded hatefully. "That King Bluepool deserves to die. Senior, if it weren't for you stopping me today, I'd definitely kill him." On the other side, Bluepool looked at the shattered disc array in his hands. Upon hearing Qin Chuan's words, he felt extremely aggrieved. He clearly didn't do anything and was only eating quietly. Why did he get targeted by such a god of plague? "Qin Chuan, didn't you King want to kill me? Come on, come and kill me." Bluepool didn't care anymore. Qin Chuan was already King riding on his head. If he were to tolerate this, how was he going to show his face in school in the future? "Do you think I don't dare? See if I don't kill you." Qin Chuan was enraged and was about to attack again when he was stopped by the helpless Zhu Feng. "All of you be quiet." Outside the restaurant, a furious Qi Yong strode in with large strides. Looking at the mess in the restaurant, his originally angry mood from the delayed arrival of the reinforcements became even more gloomy. He glanced at everyone around and bellowed furiously. "Who can explain to me what exactly is going on? Sir, I was eating with my friends when this Qin Chuan suddenly rushed in and wanted to kill me. Everyone here is a witness." Bluepool felt aggrieved. It wasn't easy for him to meet someone who could make decisions for him, so he immediately started complaining tearfully. Hearing Bluepool's words, Qi Yong couldn't help but turn his gaze towards Qin Chuan and ask sternly, "Is what he said true?" Mother Ker. Qin Chuan's face was filled with grief and indignation as he sobbed. "When I woke up this morning, I rushed out to fight the demon beasts without even eating or drinking. I killed hundreds of ferocious beasts and dozens of demon beasts in one day. I don't dare to say that I have made a great contribution, but at least I have contributed to the defense of the elf city. However, I just dragged my exhausted body back to the elf and was still immersed in the grief of losing my comrades when I was taken away by the Lan family. The Lan family actually wanted to murder me while I was weak. Fortunately, my teacher arrived in time and saved my life. Otherwise, I would have died long ago." As soon as Qin Chuan's voice fell, the surrounding crowd couldn't help but reveal a look of realization. It turned out that the people who took away Qin Chuan after they returned to the Elvish were actually from the Lan family. "Nonsense!" Bluepool was enraged. "You're slandering me." "I'm slandering you?" Qin Chuan looked miserable as he said to Qi Yong, "When I was taken away, many people at the scene saw it. They are all witnesses." Hearing this, Qi Yong frowned slightly. He turned to look at the students and soldiers around him and asked, "Is what he said true?" "Reporting to Sir, when we returned to the Elvish after the battle ended, student Qin Chuan was indeed taken away by 2 people. However, those 2 people were wearing our garrison's uniform, so I didn't pay much attention to it. But from the looks of it now, perhaps the Lan family used our garrison's identity to deceive student Qin Chuan." "That's right. We also saw it back then. Student Qin Chuan was indeed taken away by 2 people wearing the garrison's uniform. It must be the Lan family's doing. Qin Chuan previously defeated Bluepool in school and made the Lan family lose face. Other than the Lan family, who else would find trouble with Qin Chuan?" Just as everyone was discussing animatedly, Luo, who suddenly walked into the dining hall with a gloomy expression. He glanced at Qi Yong and said in a deep voice, "We were negligent this time. I didn't expect that the teachers who came to deliver the cultivation resources would do such a thing to the students." "What exactly is going on?" Qi Yong asked impatiently. Luo, who didn't have any qualms, and answered straightforwardly. Zhao Kuei, who was entrusted by the school to deliver the cultivation resources needed by the students, didn't leave immediately after completing the mission. Instead, he sent people disguised as garrison soldiers to take away Qin Chuan, who had just returned to the Elvish. Later, Qin Chuan's teacher arrived in time and stopped Zhao Kuei's scheme. Seeing that his plan was exposed, Zhao Kuei committed suicide by ingesting poison, and his soul was destroyed. And the two people who disguised themselves as garrison soldiers and took away Qin Chuan were peripheral members of the Lan family. As Luo, whose words fell, the truth surfaced. The Lan family wanted to murder Qin Chuan, but Qin Chuan's teacher arrived in time and saved Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan was filled with grief and indignation, so he wanted to vent his anger on Blue Pool, which led to the current situation. How is this possible? Blue Pool had a look of disbelief. He was completely unaware of what Luo, who said. The evidence is irrefutable. Nothing is impossible. Luo, who looked at Blue Pool coldly and said, "If your Lan family can't give a reasonable explanation, you'll have to bear the consequences." The Lan family wasn't the only powerful family in Azure Ancient City. If the Lan family couldn't resolve this matter perfectly, there would naturally be others who would find trouble with the Lan family. By then, the Lan family would have to pay an incomparably heavy price. Even if you're furious, you shouldn't have done something like this. After knowing that Qin Chuan was the victim, Qiyong's expression turned slightly better. However, he was incomparably furious that the Lan family had disguised themselves as garrison soldiers to deceive Qin Chuan. If Qin Chuan's teacher hadn't arrived in time and exposed the Lan family scheme, wouldn't the garrison soldiers be the scapegoat for murdering Qin Chuan? If this matter wasn't handled properly, they might lose the Black Moon Combat Academy's help. The consequences would be dire. "Get Lan Yuzhou to come see me," Qi Yong shouted angrily. "I want to see what the Lan family doesn't dare to do." "Sir, I feel so tired." Just then, Qin Chuan suddenly stood up and said with a sorrowful look, "I worked hard to kill the demonic beasts, completed the school's mission, and protected the elf city. But in the end, what did I get? It was a plot, a murder. I'm just an 18-year-old first-year student who just turned into an adult. Why do I have to face all this?" Looking at the sorrowful expression on Qin Chuan's face, everyone could empathize with him. If they didn't receive any rewards after putting in so much effort and were even plotted against, their feelings would definitely be worse and worse than Qin Chuan's. "Student Qin Chuan, this matter is due to our garrison's negligence. I apologize to you on behalf of the garrison. Please believe me, I will definitely make up for your losses and give you a satisfactory answer." Qi Yong's expression was solemn. He swore in his heart that he definitely wouldn't let the people who contributed to the Elf City receive such unfair treatment. Chapter 165. That's impossible. There must be some misunderstanding. This is slander. Lan Yuzhou, who had heard the news, was shocked by Qi Yong's questioning. Although the Lan family did have some thoughts about Qin Chuan, they were not fools. How could they do such a thing at such a critical time? I don't care if this is a misunderstanding or not. I want to see the Lan family take out the evidence and show your attitude. Qi Yong's face was gloomy. Is the teacher who interrogated Qin Chuan and wanted to make a move on Qin Chuan a member of the Lan family? Are the two people who pretended to be soldiers and took Qin Chuan from the Lan family? Lan Yuzhou opened his mouth, but could not say anything because Zhao Kuei was indeed a member of the Lan family. The two people who pretended to be soldiers and took Qin Chuan away were also peripheral members of the Lan family. This was something that everyone knew, and he could not deny it. "You have nothing to say?" Qi Yong sneered. "Since you don't know how to explain it, then let the person in charge of the Lan family explain it. I'll only give you one day. If you don't have a reasonable explanation within a day, then I'm sorry. After this beast tide, I'll definitely impeach Lan Ning to the higher-ups. Although Qi Yong was only a commander of a garrison, his status in the Elf City was not low. If there were other hostile families adding fuel to the fire, Lan Ning, as the mayor of the Elf City, would definitely not be able to bear the consequences. By then, the entire Lan family would be greatly affected. The Lan family would definitely not let such a thing happen. Nonsense. This is slander. Someone is trying to slander our Lan family. After learning about what happened on the elf from Lan Yuzhou, Lan Ning, who had always had a good temper as the mayor, immediately scolded. Lan Yuzhou looked helplessly at Lan Ning, who was throwing a tantrum in the video call, and said helplessly, "But the evidence is irrefutable. All the evidence points to the Lan family." Lan Ning fell silent. After a while, he said to Lan Yuzhou, "Tell me everything that happened. Tell me slowly and in detail." Lan Yuzhou immediately told Lan Ning everything he heard and heard in detail. It took him more than half an hour. When Lan Yuzhou was done, Lan Ning fell into deep thought. After a long time, he looked up at Lan Yuzhou and said, "In that case, the crux of this matter is that student Qin Chuan." "I think so too." Of course, Lan Yuzhou could see that the crux of the matter was Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan was plotted against, and it was Qin Chuan who stood up to testify against the Lan family. As long as they could appease Qin Chuan, this storm would naturally be nothing. Moreover, Qi Yong had made it very clear that they needed a reasonable explanation. If all of this was just a misunderstanding, then there was naturally no need for an explanation. Lan Ning really did not expect that he would be involved with Qin Chuan so quickly after hearing about Qin Chuan from his family a few days ago. "You can contact this Qin Chuan on my behalf." Lan Ning thought for a while and decided to contact Qin Chuan first and see what Qin Chuan's conditions were before making a decision. Unexpectedly, Lan Yuzhou smiled bitterly and said helplessly, "I wanted to contact this Qin Chuan as soon as I found out about this matter, but Qin Chuan rejected me with the reason that he was not feeling well. Moreover, he said that he did not want to see anyone from the Lan family before the matter was settled." "Oof." Lan Ning snorted coldly. "Does he really think that we can't do anything to him with Ningya as his teacher?" Lan Yuzhou fell silent. In fact, in his opinion, with Ningya backing Qin Chuan could indeed do whatever he wanted. After all, that woman's name was Ningya. They don't want to meet him because they want to raise the price. I don't believe that they really think that our Lan family is the culprit. Lan Ning finally compromised and said to Lan Yuzhou, "I'll send someone to send you some gifts. Take these gifts to see Qin Chuan. If you still can't meet him, then go directly to Ningya." "I understand." Lan Yuzhou agreed and began to think about how to deal with Qin Chuan. In the lounge, Qin Chuan lay on the bed and looked at Ningya, who was sitting beside him. His expression was rather strange. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Ningya raised her eyebrows slightly. "If you have something to say, just say it." "Teacher, who exactly are you?" Qin Chuan looked at Ningya curiously and said, "I saw the expressions of those people just now. They seem to be in awe of you." Qin Chuan remembered very clearly that Luo Hu and Qi Yong were comforting him. However, when Ningya appeared, their expressions changed immediately. It seemed that they didn't dare to get too close to Ningya and left without saying a word. He was very curious at that time. Where did Ningya get such great deterrence from? "You're really curious." Ningya looked at Qin Chuan playfully and said, "What are your guesses? Tell me about it." Qin Chuan chuckled and refused to say anything. What a joke. If he told her his guesses, it would be strange if Ningya didn't twist his head off. "Your teacher once said that I'll help you block those people with bad intentions. Do you think I'm just bragging?" Seeing that Qin Chuan didn't say anything, Ningya smiled faintly and said, "If I'm just an ordinary teacher, I naturally don't have the right to say such things." "Then other than a teacher, what are you?" Qin Chuan was a little curious. "Are you a member of the board of directors?" Ningya shook her head gently and said, "No, I'm still an elegant, intelligent, sexy, and charming woman." Qin Chuan was speechless. Ningya glanced at Qin Chuan from the corner of her eyes. "But that's only secondary." The most important thing is that I have a powerful strength and background. Qingchuan's expression changed slightly when he heard this. He said, Teacher, are you also from an aristocratic family? Must I have an aristocratic family background just because I have a background? Why can't I be from a sect? I'm just kidding. Don't be so angry. My background is the dean. The dean is my teacher. Ningya looked at Qingchuan with a smile. It seemed that she liked to see Qingchuan's expression change. Teacher, you're actually the dean's student. Qingchuan was a little surprised. Why would the dean take a liking to someone like you? Cough, cough. The dean's eyes are really sharp. Ningya snorted and said, The reason why the dean took me in as his disciple is very simple. It's because I'm the most talented person in the Black Moon Combat Academy in the past 50 years. There are many rank 3 array masters in the Federation, but there aren't many rank 3 battle array masters. Your teacher, I, happen to be one of them. Chapter 166. You're actually a rank 3 battle formation master? Qingchuan looked at Ningya in astonishment. He really didn't expect that Ningya was actually a rank 3 battle formation master. A cultivator might be able to become a rank 3 support formation master through diligent cultivation, but becoming a rank 3 battle formation master wasn't something that could be achieved through diligent cultivation. Other than having the ability to become a battle formation master, one also needed to have sufficient talent and inheritance of battle formations. During the Great Chaos, the inheritance of battle formation masters was almost completely cut off. Currently, there were very few battle formations circulating in the Star Dragon Federation, and most of them were low-grade battle formations. High-grade battle formations were definitely as rare as Phoenix Feathers and Cheelin Horns. In order to become a rank 3 battle formation master, one had to master a rank 4 battle formation master. And no matter which rank 4 battle formation it was, its destructive power would definitely be comparable to an entire interstellar fleet. With Ningya's identity as a rank 3 battle formation master, it was no wonder that no one dared to rashly provoke her. What's wrong? You seem to be very surprised. Ningya smiled lightly and said, Under my careful guidance, you also have the opportunity to become an outstanding battle formation master. However, before you fully mature, you'd better listen to me obediently, or else. Facing Ningya's threat, Qingchuan grinned and revealed a distressed expression. He said, Teacher, to be honest, after knowing that you possess such a powerful deterrent force, I feel even more uneasy in my heart. What's wrong? Are you afraid that one day you'll anger me and be struck to death by my palm? Ningya lightly raised her eyebrows. Having such a powerful teacher made him even more uneasy. What kind of logic was this? Qingchuan shook his head and said, Teacher, you're so strong, and they're so afraid of you. Yet they still took the risk and made a move against me. This means that there's definitely an enormous secret hidden in the cursed lands, and they're determined to obtain it. Therefore, unless Teacher and I stay together in the future, I'll definitely encounter a similar situation again. What you said makes some sense, but is a smooth journey what you want? Ningya looked deeply at Qingchuan and said, Only those who grow up in adversity have the qualifications to become strong. Back then, when I was weak, the difficulties I faced were much more severe than what you're facing now. You're still nothing. Teacher, I'm very curious. What secrets does the Cursed Lands hold? Qingchuan had a curious look on his face. He was really curious about the secrets hidden in the Cursed Lands. Why were these people so eager to obtain them? There are some things in the Cursed Lands that you can't come into contact with at your current stage. Wait until you have the strength of a Golden Core Stage cultivator, then come and inquire about this matter. Ningya looked at Qingchuan meaningfully and said, I can only tell you that the Cursed Land is indeed hiding a big secret, and it is related to advancing to the original infant stage. Original infant stage. Hearing this, Qingchuan couldn't help but widen his eyes. He never thought that the secret of the Cursed Lands would be related to advancing to the original infant stage. One had to know that every original infant stage cultivator was an absolute powerhouse in the Star Dragon Federation. They could do whatever they wanted in the Star Dragon Federation. If the cursed lands really hid a secret related to advancing to the original infant stage, then Qin Chuan could completely understand why the mastermind would risk offending Ningya to kidnap him. In places that we can't see, there are people exploring the cursed lands all the time. It's just that these people often disappear after going deep into the cursed lands. You, or more specifically, the four of you, are the ones who have survived the longest in the cursed lands. Moreover, you've successfully walked out of the cursed lands. Therefore, those who want to obtain the secrets of the cursed lands naturally want to pry open your mouths and obtain the information they want from you. Ningya faintly looked at Qin Chuan and said, I shouldn't have told you these things because it's not something you should know. The reason why I'm telling you these things is to let you know that the dangers around you can't be solved in a short period of time. Therefore, you must be careful. Qin Chuan looked at Ningya with a puzzled expression and asked, Teacher, have you never thought of learning the secrets of the cursed lands from me, and then finding a way to advance to the original infant stage? Ningya sneered and asked back, I can clearly rely on my own strength to advance to the original infant stage. Why would I need to rely on the secrets of the cursed lands? Hearing this, Qin Chuan gave Ningya a thumbs up. She really deserved to be called a rank 3 battle formation master. Her tone was really big. Teacher, then will Lu Zi and the others be in danger? Qin Chuan suddenly felt a little worried. If the mastermind couldn't do anything to him, then perhaps he would make a move on Lu Zi and the others. This was something that he had to guard against. Why do you think that old fellow Lu Xiangyang summoned Lu Zi back to his side? Ningya chuckled, as if she was disdainful of Lu Xiangyang's actions. Qin Chuan couldn't help but fall silent when he heard this. He always thought that Lu Xiangyang summoned Lu Zi back to his side to help Lu Zi break through. Now it seemed that it was clearly to keep Lu Zi away from him. But you don't have to think too much. Lu Zi definitely doesn't know the deeper meaning of Lu Xiangyang's actions. This won't affect the relationship between the two of you. Ningya saw that Qin Chuan's expression wasn't good, so she comforted Qin Chuan and said, After all, Lu Zi is Lu Xiangyang's biological granddaughter. It's understandable that he would be so cautious. I know. Qin Chuan grinned and said, Teacher, will Chen Changxing and Baiyu be in danger? You don't have to worry about Chen Changxing. Those people won't dare to touch him. As for Baiyu, if they can't make a breakthrough with you, they may take a step back and target Baiyu. Ningya sighed. Although Baiyu was accepted as a disciple by Su Yuluo, that fake lowly, and has a basic guarantee of her personal safety, those people even dared to touch my disciple. They may do something to Baiyu. So, as long as those people focus their attention on me, Baiyu will be safe for the time being, right? Qin Chuan pursed his lips and seemed to have made a decision. Ningya frowned slightly and stared at Qin Chuan for a while. What do you want to do? I don't want to do anything. I just feel that they have been implicated by me and I have to protect them. Qin Chuan smiled brightly at Ningya. This is what I have to do as their friend. Stupid idea, but I like it very much. Ningya reached out and gently rubbed Qin Chuan's head. Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you. Just do what you want to do. Why are you so good to me? Qin Chuan was moved. He felt that Ningya indulged him too much. Because you are my student. Ningya gazed at Qin Chuan. No one can hurt my people, no matter who they are. Chapter 167. Ningya left. Qin Chuan lay on the bed by himself as he stared at the ceiling in confusion. His mind was in a mess. Just as Qin Chuan's thoughts were in a mess, the doorbell suddenly rang. Qin Chuan did not reply. A while later, the door was actually pushed open from the outside. Lan Yuzhou slowly walked in and arrived beside Qin Chuan's bed. Lan Yuzhou could not help but be surprised when he saw Qin Chuan lying on the bed in a daze. He had thought that Qin Chuan was just an excuse when he said that he was unwell, but it seemed that he was not lying. He really was not in a good state. Your Lan family really is impressive. You can enter someone else's room without their permission. Aren't you afraid that I'll tell my master and get her to kill you? Qin Chuan slowly turned his head and looked at Lan Yuzhou. He said indifferently, I think that if you're the only one who dies, the Lan family probably won't fall out with my master. Lan Yuzhou remained extremely calm in the face of Qin Chuan's naked threat. He smiled and placed the bag in his hand before Qin Chuan. He said, Please forgive my rudeness this time for the sake of these 10 mid-grade thunder spirit stones. Qin Chuan glanced at Lan Yuzhou deeply when he heard that. He said, It's best if it's just this once. With that, Qin Chuan sat up from the bed and opened the bag. After confirming that there were indeed 10 mid-grade thunder spirit stones, he put them away and handed the bag back to Lan Yuzhou. He said, Speak. What do you want from me? Lan Yuzhou stared blankly at the bag that Qin Chuan had returned. He then smiled at Qin Chuan. Can I find a chair to sit down and talk to you slowly? Sure. Qin Chuan nodded. Lan Yuzhou found a chair and sat down in front of Qin Chuan. He said to Qin Chuan, You should know very well that this matter has nothing to do with the Lan family. Zhao Kuei was bribed. As for the two outer members of the Lan family, they were only following orders. They had no idea what Zhao Kuei wanted to do by kidnapping you. Do you think I'll believe you? Qin Chuan sneered. If explanations were useful, the human and demon races wouldn't have been at war for 8,000 years. I know it's not that you don't believe me. You just want to take a bite out of our Lan family. Lan Yuzhou smiled and said, In fact, our Lan clan is indeed in the wrong this time. So, our Lan clan is prepared to spend money to avoid disaster. You can state your conditions. As long as they aren't too excessive, I can agree on behalf of the Lan clan. Are you sure? Qin Chuan didn't think that Lan Yuzhou was someone who could make decisions on behalf of the Lan clan. Lan Yuzhou took out a list from his shirt pocket and said to Qin Chuan, The conditions that the Lan clan can accept have been written on it. You just need to state them. It seems that your Lan clan has held a meeting. Qin Chuan chuckled and said, In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. Lan Yuzhou heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Qin Chuan's words. Their Lan clan wasn't afraid of spending money. They were only afraid that Qin Chuan would insist that they weren't willing to accept money. Your Lan clan should be very powerful in Blue Ancient City and the Elf City, right? Qin Chuan didn't immediately state his conditions. Instead, he asked about the strength of the Lan clan. This made Lan Yuzhou feel very strange, but he still answered Qin Chuan's question truthfully. In Blue Ancient City, there are a total of 2 aristocratic families. One of them is our Lan clan, and the other is the Wu clan. Our Lan clan's power is weaker than the Wu clan, but it's not much different. As for the Elf City, the current mayor is Lord Lan Ning. In the Elf City, our Lan clan's words are definitely the biggest. I understand. Qin Chuan nodded and said, Then I'll state my conditions. First, I want the foundation building liquid, the highest quality foundation building liquid. Okay, Lan Yuzhou agreed. The Lan clan's higher-ups had already thought of this possibility during the previous meeting, so Lan Yuzhou, who had read the list in advance, wasn't surprised by Qin Chuan's conditions. According to our opinion, if you want the high-quality foundation building liquid, then you can only make 2 more conditions at most, and the value can't exceed the high-quality foundation building liquid. The Lan clan wasn't a money grubber, allowing Qin Chuan to ask for as much as he wanted. There should still be some restrictions. Of course, I don't intend to make 2 more conditions. In addition to the highest quality foundation building liquid, I only have 1 condition, and that is to help me protect 2 people. Qin Chuan looked at Lan Yuzhou seriously and said, By you and Lu Zi, you should know them. I want your Lan clan to protect them and not let any accidents happen to them. You know what accidents I'm talking about. Hearing Qin Chuan's second request, Lan Yuzhou couldn't help but be stunned. He thought of countless possibilities, but he never thought that Qin Chuan's second request would be for the Lan clan to be the bodyguards of Bai Yu and Lu Zi. This request isn't on the list. I need to ask for instructions. Lan Yuzhou looked at Qin Chuan with some hesitation. Go. Qin Chuan didn't refuse. He took the opportunity to hand over the 10 mid-grade Thunder Spirit Stones he had obtained earlier to Lan Yuzhou. Seeing Qin Chuan's actions, Lan Yuzhou's pupils couldn't help but shrink slightly. Qin Chuan's actions were clearly expressing that if the Lan clan wasn't willing to protect Bai Yu and Lu Zi, then everything they had discussed before would be null and void, and the Lan clan would have to take the blame. Lan Yuzhou went out to contact the higher-ups of the Lan clan. About 5 minutes later, he returned in front of Qin Chuan and said in a deep voice, "High-quality foundation building liquid and protecting Bai Yu and Lu Zi from harm." The Lan clan agrees to these two conditions. You must explain clearly for the Lan clan before tomorrow and clear our name. Understand, what happened before was my paranoia acting up. It was just my own imagination. The Lan clan isn't targeting me. Qin Chuan smiled and said to Lan Yuzhou, "Actually, I don't have any deep enmity with the Lan clan, right? Maybe we can become friends and get rid of the Wu clan together." Lan Yuzhou looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle gaze and said, "To be honest, although you have some ability, you aren't qualified to be friends with the Lan clan." Qin Chuan wasn't surprised by Lan Yuzhou's attitude. He shrugged lightly and said, "Don't bully the young for being poor." After Lan Yuzhou completed his task, he wasn't in the mood to continue chatting with Qin Chuan and simply left. As for the high-quality foundation building liquid, it would naturally be delivered to Qin Chuan as soon as possible. The Wu clan, Qin Chuan murmured softly. If the person who made a move on him wasn't the Lan clan, then the biggest suspect was the Wu clan. As the sworn enemy of the Lan clan in Azure Ancient City, it wasn't difficult for the Wu clan to infiltrate the Lan clan system. Chapter 168. Qin Chuan kept his promise. After the Lan family sent the Milky White Foundation establishment fluid to them and found no mistakes, he immediately went to look for Qi Yong and Ningya to clear the Lan family's name. With Qin Chuan, the person involved, solving the problem, everything went smoothly. Soon, Qin Chuan and the Lan family reached a settlement and publicly apologized for wronging the Lan family due to anger. News of this spread on the elven ship. Due to the restaurant incident yesterday, Bluepool had been ostracized and looked down upon by everyone during this period of time. When he heard the news of Qin Chuan's apology, Bluepool almost cried. Although everyone still had some doubts, Qin Chuan had already taken the initiative to apologize to the Lan family. With Qi Yong and Luo, who was guarantors, everyone didn't think too much about it. They just thought that Qin Chuan was too angry and wanted to vent his anger, so he went to the Lan family. The Lan family's response came very quickly. There wasn't any lengthy explanation. They said that since Qin Chuan was still young and didn't know any better and apologized sincerely, this matter was considered over. The uproar soon subsided. At the same time, the third wave of beasts arrived. Compared to the previous two waves of beasts, the number of beasts in the third wave was still around 100,000. Most of them were ferocious beasts, and a small number of them were demonic beasts. Under the command of some highly intelligent demons, they fearlessly charged towards the elven ship. Facing this wave of beasts, everyone was still scheduled to go out after 3 rounds of bombardment. But this time, what made everyone feel heavy-hearted was that when the beasts charged into the bombardment range of the laser cannons and battleship cannons, they actually dispersed and no longer gathered together. When the beasts disperse, the battleship cannons and laser cannons won't be able to achieve the greatest effect. We have to bombard them a few more times. But with the speed of the beasts, we only have the time for 3 rounds of bombardment. Qi Yong looked at the beasts that were getting closer and closer to the elven ship with a grave expression. He was furious. He was furious at the cunning of the demons and even more furious at the inaction of the higher-ups. The elven city was clearly in danger, but the reinforcements were still unwilling to take action. This was simply a heinous crime. Tell all the soldiers to prepare for a fight to the death. Qi Yong gritted his teeth and said to Luo, who, in this battle, the students of your Black Moon Combat Academy can retreat at the most critical moment. Our garrison will fight to the death. Luo, whose face twitched when he heard this. He gritted his teeth, but in the end, he did not say anything impulsive. The lives of every student of the Black Moon Combat Academy were precious, and it was impossible for them to die in the battle against the beast tide. If necessary, they had to retreat. Rumble. After 3 rounds of bombardment, everyone immediately charged at the surging tide of beasts. Qinchuan was also mixed in the crowd, fiercely colliding with the tide of beasts. With a punch, he flipped a ferocious beast covered in golden spots to the ground, and even its brain matter was smashed out. Before the charge, Luo, who had already warned them not to go too deep into the beast tide. They had to do their best to protect themselves and be prepared to retreat at any time. Many people took Luo Hu's warning to heart, and they were no longer as brave as before when they charged forward. Instead, they became somewhat timid. As a result, the pressure on the garrison greatly increased, and there were already casualties in the early stages of the battle. On the Elfin, Qi Yong saw everything that was happening on the battlefield. As he watched every soldier fall, his heart bled. However, he could not blame the Black Moon Combat Academy for not doing anything, as the Black Moon Combat Academy had already helped them greatly over the past few days. If not for the Black Moon Combat Academy's help, they would have been defeated long ago. Pass down the order, retreat. Return to the Elfin. Seeing that the beast tide was unstoppable, Qi Yong could only give the order to retreat. He had everyone return to the Elfin and rely on the Elfin for defense. Just as Qi Yong gave the order to retreat, there was a sudden change in the tide of demonic beasts. A group of demonic beasts suddenly gathered together and rushed towards the direction of the garrison troops. They actually surrounded the garrison troops. Seeing this scene, Qi Yong could not help but turn pale with fright. This is bad. The commander of the demons must have seen that the Black Moon Combat Academy is not doing anything, so he gathered the demon beasts to kill us. On the battlefield, the only people who could rescue the garrison were the students of the Black Moon Combat Academy. However, under the obstruction of countless vicious beasts, if the students did not fight with their lives on the line, they would not be able to rescue the garrison. Once the garrison was surrounded and annihilated, most of the weapons on the Elfin would lose control, and they would not be able to stop the beast tide. This would put the Elfin city in danger. Luo, who had been protecting the students on the battlefield, also sensed the changes on the battlefield. He took the initiative to contact Qi Yong, and when he heard about the critical situation of the garrison, his face could not help but turn gloomy. The Black Moon Combat Academy had persisted in fighting until now, which could be considered extremely benevolent. If they chose to retreat now, no one could say that they were wrong. However, once they retreated, the lives of the Black Moon Combat Academy students would be preserved, but the garrison would be completely annihilated. When that happened, the demons might take the opportunity to open up a spatial tunnel and launch an all-out attack. Once that happened, the Elfin city would be plunged into misery and suffering. Teacher, the garrison won't be able to hold on for long. Zhu Feng stood beside Luo Hu and looked in the direction of the garrison with a serious expression. He said to Luo Hu, "I'm willing to enter the depths of the beast tide to find the commander of the demons and behead him. As long as the commander of the demons was killed, the beast tide would fall into chaos and the siege would be broken. The crisis of the garrison would naturally be resolved." No, that's too dangerous. Luo Hu did not hesitate to reject Zhu Feng's suggestion. The commander of the demons would definitely be a demon general and would definitely be protected by demon soldiers. Although Zhu Feng was strong, if he rashly entered the depths, he might not be able to escape. Are we just going to watch? Zhu Feng was unwilling and hatefully said, "Why haven't the reinforcements arrived yet?" This was already the 3rd day of the beast tide, but the reinforcements were still nowhere to be seen. They were clearly watching the destruction of the Elfin city. Teacher, many of the students have already been injured. Han Ting, who was covered in blood, came in front of Luo Hu and panted, "Either we retreat or we kill. Give us a quick death." Luo Hu looked around and glanced at the students who were already beginning to feel fear after being besieged by the vicious beasts. He could not help but sigh and said, "Let's retreat." If he had known that the situation would turn out like this, He would not have said that they should be prepared to retreat at any time. This had caused the students to lose the will to fight and only think about retreating. They were even unable to deal with the vicious beasts. Now, even if he wanted to stimulate the students' fighting spirit to rescue the garrison, it was already too late. Chapter 169. Bang! Qin punched a ferocious beast to the ground, then frowned and looked around. He whispered, "Strange, why are there ferocious beasts everywhere? Where did the demonic beasts go?" "Qin, come back." "Not far away." Chun Changxing shouted at Qin. "We have to retreat." "Retreat?" Qin doubted his ears. Today's beast tide was coming fiercely. If they retreated now, wouldn't it be tantamount to losing the war? Chun Changxing quickly ran to Qin's side and quickly said to Qin, "Did you forget that Teacher Luo reminded us to be ready to retreat at any time? Now is the time." Qin was shocked when he heard this. He thought that the reminder was just to tell them to be careful and protect themselves, not to be stubborn in the face of danger, and to retreat in time. He didn't expect that it was for everyone to retreat. What about the garrison? Are they also retreating with us? Qin had always felt that something was wrong. Now that his teacher asked them to retreat immediately, this made Qin feel that something was even more wrong. Facing Qin's question, Chun Changxing's expression was a little complicated. He whispered, "The garrison has been surrounded by the demonic beasts gathered by the demonic beast commander." After hearing Chun Changxing's explanation, Qin finally understood why he had only encountered ferocious beasts along the way and not a single demonic beast. It turned out that all the demonic beasts had been transferred to the garrison. "Shouldn't we go and rescue the garrison?" Qin killed a ferocious beast that tried to attack him with a punch and said coldly, "We're just going to retreat like this." Chun Changxing didn't know how to explain to Qin. In fact, he didn't know the situation of the garrison either. He also didn't know why Luo, who had given such a strange order before the war had even begun, causing most people to lose the will to fight and only think about retreating. "They won't last long." Chun Changxing grabbed Qin's arm and said, "Don't think too much. Let's go." Qin was dragged by Chun Changxing all the way to where the main group was. After killing a few dire beasts in succession, they finally met up with the rest. Qin looked at the people gathered together. He could clearly see the fear and uneasiness on their faces, but he could not see the slightest bit of fighting spirit. This was completely different from what he saw 2 days ago. 2 days ago, she could clearly see everyone fighting with their lives on the line against the beast tide. Why would everything change after just 1 day? Everyone, prepare to retreat. Luo, who appeared at this moment. He looked at everyone with a serious expression and said, "Let's return to the elf city immediately and use the teleportation circle to return to the school." "Teacher Luo." At this moment, Zhu Feng suddenly stood up. He looked at Luo who seriously and said, "I'll stay behind." Luo who took a deep look at Zhu Feng and nodded. "Okay, you stay behind. Pay attention to your safety." Zhu Feng nodded solemnly. He just wanted to stay behind and do something within his ability. He would not sacrifice his life for nothing. On the grassland, Zhu Feng watched Luo, who lead the group away. The expression on his face gradually became bitter. If there were reinforcements, things would not have turned out like this. The commander of the demon clan, Zhu Feng, looked at the direction where the garrison was besieged with a fierce expression. This time, even if he could not behead the commander of the demon clan, he must kill to his heart's content. After choosing a direction, Zhu Feng immediately rushed in that direction. Along the way, he killed all the dire beasts that blocked his way. After rushing for thousands of meters, he finally met the first demonic beast that blocked his way. However, even demonic beasts were no different from dire beasts in front of Zhu Feng, who was in the late stage of the foundation establishment stage. They were equally fragile and could not withstand a single blow. Just as Zhu Feng was about to continue forward after killing this demonic beast, a rat-type demonic beast that was as tall as a person appeared and caught Zhu Feng's attention. This demonic beast was wearing simple armor. To be exact, it should be a demon soldier. Seeing this demon soldier, Zhu Feng was not surprised. Instead, he was happy because this meant that he was close to the location of the demon clan's commander. And this demon soldier was most likely the guard of the demon clan's commander. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The demon soldier roared threateningly at Zhu Feng, obviously warning Zhu Feng not to go any further. However, Zhu Feng did not care. He raised his sword and slashed at the demon soldier in front of him. This demon soldier naturally could not withstand Zhu Feng's casual attack and was cut in half on the spot. Zhu Feng also took away the demon core. After this demon soldier died, a burst of angry roars suddenly came from all around Zhu Feng. Immediately, dozens of rat-type demon soldiers appeared in all directions around Zhu Feng. Then, 3 larger demon generals appeared in front of Zhu Feng. Zhu Feng's expression couldn't help but become a lot more solemn when he saw these 3 demon generals. He could easily kill demon soldiers, but when it came to demon generals, even the weakest demon general would find it difficult to instantly kill them, let alone 3 of them joining forces. And the largest demon general in the middle should be the commander of this wave of demon beasts. Human expert Dai. The demon race commander spoke in human language and waved his arm at Zhu Feng. The other 2 demon generals rushed towards Zhu Feng. Dozens of demon soldiers also moved at this moment and surrounded Zhu Feng, not giving him any chance to break out of the encirclement. Seeing this, Zhu Feng roared and immediately activated the bracelet on his wrist. Immediately, a pale white light engulfed his body and completely enveloped him. Facing this situation, even someone as strong as Zhu Feng had no choice but to cautiously put on the premium combat uniform. Bang! The demon general relied on his enormous strength and sturdy body to brutally slam into Zhu Feng's body. Zhu Feng angrily roared, and a hazy light suddenly appeared behind him. Soon after, a mysterious glyph array condensed behind Zhu Feng. Divine Power Talisman Formation Form. Following the condensation of the Divine Power Talisman Formation, the surging power in Zhu Feng's body suddenly skyrocketed. He punched out, and the powerful force seemed to materialize as it surged towards the demon general. Like a wave crashing against a sampan, the demon general was immediately overturned and fell to the ground with a loud bang, and a cloud of dust was raised. After knocking down a demon general, Zhu Feng immediately locked onto another demon general. Just as Zhu Feng was about to defeat this demon general, the demon race commander, not far away, suddenly raised his head to the sky and roared. A violent wave of demon chi emerged from his body. Humans have runes, and demons have demon runes. The demon clan's commander had clearly activated the power of the demon runes and wanted to give Zhu Feng a fatal blow. At this moment, Zhu Feng was desperately entangled with another demon general. Coupled with the encirclement of numerous demon soldiers, he had no way to interrupt the demon clan's commander from condensing the power of the demon runes. He could only watch as he fell into a desperate situation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.